All right, guys, thanks for watching DC5 Live today. I'm Molly Nevola here in Washington. We have a pretty full news day for you today, including some breaking news that is happening right now. I want to intro you really quick. We have a lot of stuff happening on the Hill in politics today. President Trump is meeting with the Palestinian president. Former President Obama is in Chicago with Michelle Obama. They're going to be talking the Obama Presidential Library there. And we also have a possible update on the escaped prisoner situation that we've been bringing you here locally in Maryland in Howard County. We're going to bring you there live as well to see if we have any updated information on that. But first, let's go up to Billerica, Massachusetts. This is a live shot right now. What you're looking at is a car that has crashed into a wall at an auto auction. That is what we know right here. Check out these aerials. I don't have any sound on this, but this is chopper video of that accident. Looks like there's a lot of firefighter presence here, and it looks pretty damaging. We're hearing reports that there are some injuries involved, but nothing confirmed that I can tell you right now. But this is what it looks like there. Billerica, Massachusetts, a crash at an auto auction. Looks like the chopper is heading out a little bit. We have a sort of a wider view of what this looks like. It looks like sort of a warehouse type building. And there was an auto auction going on and this car crashed into a wall. We don't know some of the surrounding circumstances, but I'm going to be finding out some more information on this and bringing that to you live. All right, guys, if you are joining us, you're looking at live aerials of a scene in Billerica, Massachusetts, where a vehicle crash has occurred. We don't know a lot of details right now, but we're hearing reports that there have been dozens, multiple, if not dozens of injuries here. You're seeing this sort of warehouse looking like wall, firefighter presence, and it was an auto auction where a car crashed into the wall of this warehouse building. So we don't know a lot of details on this, but we're efforting some more information for you to bring you more on this crash in Massachusetts. All right, guys, and separately, I'm bringing you over to a scene over down here in Howard County, Maryland. If you've been watching, you know we've been tracking this escaped prisoner search in Howard County. Now, nothing is confirmed today, but there were reports of a possible sighting of a man near the woods in Jessup, Maryland, which is where this escaped prisoner situation happened just a few days ago. We've been watching it. We've been tracking it. The background here is that this man, David Watson, age 28, escaped out of police custody from a van. He had shackles on, and apparently they think that he possibly got out of those shackles and ran off into the woods. So they've been searching this vast area, this large wooded area, for a few days now, and there's only one report of a sighting today of a man near the woods. So we have chopper video here. Check out this screen here. This is the latest tweet from Howard County Police of this possible sighting. There was only one report, so police are on the scene and are going to update with any new info. We do have a reporter checking that scene out just in case something does come up and that this man was in fact found. We don't know. He could be far away. He could be out of the state by now, but we're investigating this more, and we're going to keep bringing you live updates on this escaped prisoner search. Now, separately, also, we were bringing you over here to Billerica, Massachusetts, not in Boston, where a crash has occurred at an auto auction show. And you can see the damage here from these aerial footage. And we're going to jump back to Howard County. The latest tweet here from Howard County Police saying that police are acting on this one single tip of the possible sighting of a man near the woods in Jessup. Now, if you've been following the story, you know possibly that there's been an all-out search, including many patrol officers, canine searches, etc., throughout this wooded area in Howard County. And now we have a helicopter here. You can see in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen looking for this prisoner. They mention him by name here in this tweet. Prisoner David Watson, age 28. He's a white male, about 5'8", and this search has been ongoing for quite some time now. So we're going to keep investigating this and see if there's any new information coming out of Howard County. And we'll continue to bring you live and breaking events all over. We also have President Obama speaking in Chicago today, as well as President Trump will be greeting the Palestinian president at the White House. A lot of different political events going on concurrently today. So we'll bring you things live as we have them. But for now, you are watching DC5 Live. We're going to bring you back up to that scene in Billerica, Massachusetts. Check it out here. We'll bring you more information as it comes available to us. So, guys, if you're just joining us, you're looking at live aerials of an auto crash. A vehicle has crashed. You can see here the chopper grabbing this footage. Lots of firefighters around here working to effort this rescue. We don't have a lot of details on injuries or deaths at this time, but we're going to continue to monitor reports and bring you that information. Also, concurrently, check this out. We have a recent, somewhat of a development with this Howard County escaped prisoner case. If you were watching throughout the week, you might have been following this. Today, there's been a possible sighting of a man near Jessup Woods. Now, if you remember, this escaped prisoner escaped out of police custody just a few days ago and ran off, they think, into the wooded area in Howard County. And there's been a search ever since. So there's not a lot of whole new updates on this. We're going to monitor Howard County Police Twitter here and see what they keep updating for our reference here about this possible sighting of a man. I think they wrote it here in this tweet. They're acting on one single tip this morning. So we do have one of our reporters heading out to that scene right now. We'll see if we can effort some more information on that case. Also, going on in Washington, D.C. currently, right now, this is live. You can see here FBI Director Comey is testifying on Russia and on the Clinton investigations and a wide variety of things there in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee. So take a listen to this now, and we'll jump back with more updates shortly.
Without regard to the First Amendment values that normally underlie press reporting, and simply becomes a conduit for the Russian intelligence services or some other adversary of the United States just to push out information to damage the United States. And I realize reasonable people, as you said, struggle to draw a line, but surely there's conduct that's so far to the side of that line that we can all agree there's nothing that even smells journalist about some of this conduct.
So if you could map that continuum, there are clearly members of the IC that have at different points in the past leaked classified information. That is an illegal act, correct?
Correct.
When American journalists court and solicit that information, have they violated any law by asking people in the IC to potentially leak information that is potentially classified?
That conduct is not treated by the U.S. government as criminal conduct. Now, I've been asked in other contexts, isn't it true that the espionage statute has no carve-out for journalists? That's true, but at least in my lifetime, the Department of Justice's view has been news gathering and legitimate news reporting is not covered, is not going to be investigated or prosecuted as a criminal act. That's how it's thought of.
So an investigative reporter taking advantage of and celebrating the liberties that we have under the First Amendment at the Washington Post or at the Omaha World Herald.
Guys, I'm going to take you back to this scene in Billerica, Massachusetts. We have a little more information here, bringing you back here on this crash at the auto auction. Apparently a vehicle, this is the information we have, has crashed through this building, and medics are actually wheeling people out on gurneys. The crash occurred at Linway Auto Auction. That's the name of the auction going on there in Billerica. And these images from the chopper show a lot of the debris, or somewhat. You can kind of see it if we zoomed in a little more. And after this vehicle has apparently crashed through an exterior wall from inside the building. So the car actually came from inside that warehouse building to the outside. Lots of ambulance presence, several of them there. We do not have a comment from police at this time, but that's just a brief little update on some details on this crash at the auto auction. The chopper is kind of moving away right now, but as we get more of a clear picture as to what happened, we'll bring you back over there. But you can see right there, the car came through the wall from the inside of that auction. Again, not a lot of details, but we know it was Linway Auto Auction in Billerica, Massachusetts. That's what you're looking at right now. And it happened this morning, earlier this morning. This is what we have, these chopper video here, people being wheeled out on gurneys. We don't have that footage that most likely happened earlier, but once we get more numbers and information, we'll bring that back to you. Back over to the Senate Judiciary Committee, FBI Director James Comey testifying in front of them today. Here we go.
Those interests, this activity I'm talking about, WikiLeaks, involves no such considerations whatsoever. It's what I said to intelligence porn. Just push it out in order to damage.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Franken.
Thank you, Senator Feinstein. Good to see you, Mr. Director. I'm going to kind of pick up where I think Sheldon Senator Whitehouse was going. Are you familiar with a report called the Kremlin Playbook?
No.
Okay. This is an expert report that exhaustively documents Russia's past efforts to undermine European democracies. According to the report, Russia is known to cultivate close ties with business and political leaders in target countries. This is stuff you acknowledged to Senator Whitehouse that you knew happened. The report explains that, quote, Russia has cultivated an opaque network of patronage across the region that it uses to influence and direct decision making. In other words, Russia has a strategy of creating the conditions that give rise to corruption, then exploiting that corruption to its own benefit. In the intelligence community's unclassified assessment of the Russian campaign to influence the American election, our nation's intelligence agencies write, quote, Putin has had many positive experiences working with Western political leaders whose business interests made them more disposed to deal with Russia. That seems to jibe with your understanding of what Russia has done.
Correct.
Now, in that same assessment, the FBI, the CIA, and the NSA all concluded that Russia did, in fact, interfere in the 2016 election in order to, quote, help President-elect Trump's election chances, when possible, by discrediting Secretary Clinton. And the agencies concluded that the Russians had a clear preference for President Trump. What is your assessment of why the Russian government had a clear preference for President Trump?
The intelligence community's assessment had a couple of parts with respect to that. One is he wasn't Hillary Clinton, who Putin hated and wanted to harm in any possible way. And so he was their opponent, so necessarily they supported him. And then also this second notion that the intelligence community assessed that Putin believed he would be more able to make deals, reach agreements with someone with a business background than with someone who had grown up in more of a government environment.
Okay, well, I'm curious about just how closely Russia followed the Kremlin playbook when it meddled in our democracy, specifically whether the Russians had a preference for President Trump because he had already been ensnared in their web of patronage. Web of patronage is a quote from the report. Is it possible that in the Russians' view, Trump's business interests would make him more amenable to cooperating with them, quote, more disposed to deal with Russia, as the IC report says?
That was not the basis for the IC's assessment.
Okay, well, I just said, is it possible?
I see.
You don't want to speculate.
Yeah, because possible questions are hard for me to answer.
Yeah. Well, in order for us to know for certain whether President Trump would be vulnerable to that type of exploitation, we would have to understand his financial situation. We'd have to know whether or not he has money tied up in Russia or obligations to Russia.
Guys, if you've been following our story on the escaped prisoner, we have a little bit of a new update. Today, I'm going to bring you over to check out this tweet from Paul Wagner. He's our reporter who's there on the scene. This is a possible update. We don't know for sure what has transpired this morning, but Paul says here he's tweeting out just 40 minutes ago, the police renewed their ground search for that missing prisoner, David Watson, and one single witness has told police that he may be dressed in a hard hat and a vest. Still unsure as to what's going on this morning, but that is a little bit of an update. And here is a live picture of our chopper video, checking out that scene to see if we have any new information coming out. The most recent tweet from Paul Wagner is this. Here it is in the left-hand corner of your screen. Police have now a perimeter set up near Clifton Perkins Hospital. If you remember, that was the psychiatric hospital where they first held their first press conference for the media about this escape. And they continue their search now for escaped prisoner David Watson. This is his Paul Wagner's Twitter pic right here. And below in the right-hand corner of your screen is an aerial view of that continued search in the wooded area no one really knows what's up. Is he hiding in the sewage system? That's a possible tip that some people are saying. It's rumors. We don't know. So we will continue to monitor this. And also concurrently, guys, we're waiting on, check it out. This is the White House live shot right now. We're waiting on President Trump to come out. He's about to greet the Palestinian president today to the White House. He last met with him in March. This will be an interesting little meeting here to talk about Israeli-Palestinian relations and the one-state, two-state system that President Trump has been speaking about. So we'll wait for this and bring you this live. Kind of a cool shot to see the welcoming sort of ceremony there at the front of the White House as the cars come in. Here it is. Check it out.
يبدو أن موكب السيد الرئيس محمود عباس قد وصل الآن إلى البيت الأبيض. نعم، إذا وصل السيد الرئيس محمود عباس الآن وهو يخرج من سيارته واستقباله الرئيس الأمريكي دونالد ترامب. السيد الرئيس يصافح الآن الرئيس الأمريكي دونالد ترامب. دخل الآن إلى البيت الأبيض ليعقد الاجتماع الثنائي بينهما. كما تكون في هذا الاجتماع يستمر حوالي 20 أو 25 دقيقة. يلي ذلك تلاوة البيانين الصحفيين. سوف يتلى البيانان من غرفة ريسترد. هذه الغرفة مخصصة لكبار الشخصيات التاريخية ديانا. نعم ديانا، إذا نحن في انتظار انتهاء اللقاء.
Interesting that he didn't raid a little like most of them, you know. He didn't raid that little family. Everybody got him all up. I don't think he's on schedule. Are they still rolling? They should still be rolling off.
So guys, you're just looking at raw video here outside the White House of President Trump meeting with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. You know, President Trump met with Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, earlier in May, and has said he's either or of the one-state, two-state solution. He's also said that his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, will be in charge of sort of the peace in the Middle East. He would take the lead in that. I guess we're looking at playback here at a different angle of the president coming in and greeting President Trump. Now later we'll be able to bring you hopefully those remarks live as well, their meeting.
Right. You got it. Okay. Right.
Mr. Courtesy WFXT, embargo to WNAC and WPRI, Edge Live Channel 2.
All right, guys, and we are bringing you back now to a shot of the car auto crash in Billerica, Massachusetts. We're going to try to get some more information on this. We still have this chopper up in Billerica, an auto accident here. A vehicle has crashed into the wall at an auto auction. And we are reading that there have been dozens of injuries. People were taken out on gurneys. Here's a little more of a close-up with some firefighter presence here and ambulances, several ambulances have been dispatched. This all happened at Linway Auto Auction in Billerica, Massachusetts. Lots of debris there. It looks like, or we are reading reports that the car came from inside that building to the outside. no additional information on exactly why or what happened behind this. Just a little geographical reference here. Billerica is about 20 miles northwest of Boston. So if you are familiar with the layout up there in Boston, this is where this crash has occurred. A witness says that cars were lined up on the auction block when one vehicle suddenly accelerated. That same witness said they heard tires screeching and saw the vehicle strike several people. The driver avoided the cars and went on to hit the people who were standing between the cars. So that's some new information that we have from a report from our Fox 29 station in Philadelphia. We'll continue to bring you some more updated information on this crash as it becomes available to us. All right, if you guys are just joining us, you are watching aerial footage in Billerica, Massachusetts. This is about 20 miles northwest of Boston. The location is at a crash that occurred from a vehicle coming from inside this building at an auto auction to the outside. Now, this occurred Wednesday morning, this morning, at Linway Auto Auction there in Billerica. You're seeing sort of a wide angle footage of this right now. You can see a lot of medical presence there, ambulances and firefighters responding to the scene. One of the employees of this auction, I think we want to say, this is a witness, said that he heard tires screeching when he saw the vehicle strike several people. He told Fox 29 that the driver avoided the cars and went on to hit people who were standing in between the cars. So it seems to be there's something behind this. It's a little suspicious what happened, what the motive was, and what exactly the situation is. But that is the information that we have. These images from the chopper show the vehicle covered in debris. If you kind of zoom your eyesight to the center there of the picture, you see the vehicle sort of halfway out of that wall. It crashed through an exterior wall from the inside of the building. Now, medics came to the scene and several people were taken out on gurneys, is what we know. Once again, this is in Billerica, Massachusetts, about 20 miles northwest of Boston. So we are getting this live from Chopper Video. Once we have more information than that, we'll bring it to you as well. Also, guys, simultaneously, we are still monitoring this live situation in Howard County. You can see the chopper video here of this wooded area. Not super clear what's going on here. You see some police presence, but we know that there were reports. There was one single report of a possible sighting in Jessup, Maryland. If you've been following our show, we've been tracking this case where David Watson, age 28, is a prisoner sentenced to more than 100 years for attempting to kill police officers. He escaped police custody, ran off into this wooded area. The search continues. It has been ongoing for days now, and no concrete evidence or information about where he might be. So we do have our reporter Paul Wagner on the scene. He rushed over there and he's been tweeting. I'm going to see if I can bring you any updated tweets from him as I get them loaded up. But this, for now, is the chopper video of that scene. We're going to try to bring you some more information shortly. We're going to take you back for a moment to politics, back down to the Senate Judiciary Committee, who is holding a hearing here. And there he is. You see him. FBI Director James Comey is in the spotlight today, being asked lots of questions. They are likely to ask him why it took 2 weeks to fire Michael Flynn, the former national security advisor under President Trump, and other questions and other concerns for the FBI. So he is there in the spotlight. We'll let you listen in for a second here and then bring you over to the closed meeting that President Trump had with the Palestinian president. We'll get some footage of that on tape playback for you. That is coming up shortly. For now, Senate Judiciary Committee here questioning James Comey, who is testifying in front of them.
My judgment was a counterintelligence. We have to separate two things. I thought it was very important to call out what the Russians were trying to do with our election. And I offered in August myself to be a voice for that in a public piece, calling it out. The Obama administration didn't take advantage of that in August. They did it in October. But I thought that was very important to call out. That's a separate question from, do you confirm the existence of a classified investigation that has just started to try and figure out, are there any connections between that Russian activity and U.S. persons that started in late July? And remember, the Hillary Clinton investigation, we didn't confirm it existed until 3 months after it, and it started publicly. So I thought the consistent principle would be, we don't confirm the existence of certainly any investigation that involves a U.S. person, but a classified investigation in its early stages. We don't know what we have, what is there. And so my judgment was consistent with the principles I've always operated under. That was the right thing to do. Separately, I thought it was very important to call out and tell the American people the Russians are trying to mess with your elections.
Well, I hope that in the future, that attempt to draw attention to Russian interference in our election, which you've testified you expect to continue, will be effective. Let me ask one last question, if I might. There's a lot of ways that the FBI helps state and local law enforcement. One I've been grateful for was the Violence Reduction Network, through which the FBI provided much needed assistance to Wilmington Police Department. This is my hometown, where we've had a dramatic spike in violence. I'd be interested in hearing how you imagine or how you intend that the FBI will continue to assist local law enforcement.
We do have a little updated information on this continued search for the escaped prisoner in Howard County. So jumping over now to Maryland, take a look at this. The latest tweet from Paul Wagner there on your screen. He's our reporter who is there on the scene. The ground search for escaped prisoner David Watson is still underway along these abandoned tracks that you see in his tweet. That's near Clifton Perkins Hospital, that same psychiatric hospital that the first press conference was held at for police. That was right along the scene of where the van was, where this prisoner escaped out of police custody. So that is his latest tweet just about a few seconds ago. checking it out there. And at the bottom right of your screen, you can see this continued chopper video of this same wooded area, sort of right near where this picture is, near these railroad tracks that we saw police and canine patrol searching for this prisoner just a few days ago when this all happened. So that is the latest on this search. If there is any other information from Howard Police, we're going to bring that to you as well. In just a second, we're going to bring you this scene in the Roosevelt Room of the White House. This will be live. We're not going to do that closed meeting between President Trump and the president of Palestine, but instead this will be a joint statement that they make together here in the Roosevelt Room. So that is our setup for that scene. We're going to go over there as soon as we have it live. But for now, we'll take you back. The most recent tweet, one more tweet coming out from Paul Wagner here about this situation in Howard County here. Officers are watching on the tracks here, these railroad tracks. It's the last known location that he was detected by canine last Friday. He being David Watson, the escaped prisoner that there is still a continued manhunt for here close by to DC in Howard County, Maryland. We will wait also for an update. If we have any update from Howard County Police, we'll bring that to you as well.
Conclude neither of them committed a crime.
Because with respect to Ms. Abbott in particular, we didn't have any indication that she had a sense that what she was doing was in violation of the law. Couldn't prove any sort of criminal intent. Really, the central problem we had with the whole email investigation was proving that people knew, the secretary and others knew that they were doing something, that they were communicating about classified information in a way that they shouldn't be, and proving that they had some sense that they were doing something unlawful. That was our burden, and we weren't able to meet it.
So she thought it was okay to send her husband the information?
Well, I don't want to get too much into what she thought. We could not prove that the people sending the information, either in that case or in the other case with the secretary, were acting with any kind of mens rea, with any kind of criminal intent.
Assume for a second, again, I'm not a United States Senator. I'm working for a presidential campaign, and I'm contacted by a Russian agent. And he just wants to talk about the campaign in general and strategy. Am I committing a crime?
Harder to answer. And one, I probably don't want to answer even in a hypothetical, given the work that we're doing.
All right, well, let me try it this way. Let's assume that I'm not a United States Senator and I'm working for a presidential campaign. And I'm contacted by a Russian agent who says, I've got some hacked emails here and I want to visit with you about them. Am I committing a crime?
Yeah, also, Senator, I think I should resist answering that hypothetical.
Okay. Can you explain to me, not the law, but just in your personal opinion, when interrogation techniques become torture?
You mean not the law?
That's right.
There is a statute that defines torture in the United States. And so that, as a lawyer and as a member of a law enforcement organization, that's where I would start, that the definition of torture is laid out in American statutes. I'm not sure I understand what you mean beyond that.
I'm just asking your personal opinion about what you think constitutes torture. Where you personally would draw the line, drawing on your substantial experience.
I'd say in general, any conduct that involves the intentional infliction of physical pain or discomfort in order to obtain information is, in the colloquial sense, torture. Okay. May not be torture under the statute, which Congress chose to define at a fairly high level, but as a human being and a FBI director, I consider the infliction of physical pain and discomfort to be, by and large, colloquially, torture.
Any kind of physical pain or discomfort? Suppose you just serve someone bad food.
Well, again, tricky for us because the FBI is very careful never to intentionally inflict physical pain or discomfort of any sort to try and question somebody. So
Understand?
I'd say, yeah, that's conduct you should stay way clear of.
Mr. Director,
It's also ineffective, frankly, but that's a whole nother deal.
Sure. Do you think it is possible from a law enforcement perspective to properly vet a non-American, non-citizen, I should say, coming to the United States from a conflict area such as Syria?
It's difficult to do it perfectly, and I have concerns about the ability to vet people coming from areas where we have no relationship on the ground with the government there. And so I suppose it's possible to do it reasonably. There's a number of tools you could bring to bear, but there are always risks associated with that.
I mean, how do you do it? You can't call the Chamber of Commerce in Syria. How do you do it?
Well, and we do it now. We query the holdings of the entire American intelligence community to see if any, what we call selectors, phone numbers, emails, addresses associated with that person have ever shown up anywhere in the world in our holdings. That's a pretty good way to do it. Getting into the person's social media to see what they have there is another pretty good way to do it. The way we rely on, in most cases, is the host government will have information about them.
Yes,
and even where the host government...
I'm looking up my article here. Go ahead.
Yeah, and in Iraq, we had a United States military presence for many years and collected a whole lot of biometrics, so we can query that to see if the person's fingerprints ever showed up.
Can I stop you for one moment? I got 10 seconds.
Sure, I'm sorry.
How about Yemen?
Similarly difficult.
I yield back my 3 seconds, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Hirono.
Thank you.
All right, guys, we'll take a tiny little mini break from politics here and bring it back to the newsroom. You can see the newsroom behind me, Molly Nevola here in Washington, D.C. Let's switch it up a little bit. I want to show you this really cool entertainment report that came to us this morning on our morning show from our entertainment reporter and film guru, Kevin McCarthy. I got to show you this clip. We took it on our morning show. He put it together. He is in Venice, Italy right now. Now, Venice is a very special place in my heart. I studied abroad there in college when I was 19. Love it so much. And he is on this amazing trip to jump on the Orient Express, the old train that still runs north. He's going to take it north from Italy to essentially take the ride and review the new version of Murder on the Orient Express, the film based on Agatha Christie's classic mystery, which I also remember reading. And so he's going to be there to take it all in and do a little review and take in the scene. Johnny Depp is starring in the new version of this film. So check out this little segment that he fed back. We played it on our morning show. He is there in Venice putting together all this awesome stuff. Check out this video.
Of Venice, Italy. Oh, Kevin. Hey everybody, it's Kevin McCarthy and I'm here in Venice. I cannot believe I'm actually in Italy. Now by the time you're watching this video, I will have already boarded the Venice Simplon Orient Express, one of the most iconic trains ever. Now you probably know it mostly from the 1934 Agatha Christie novel, which inspired the classic 70s film with Sean Connery. Now as you're watching this video, I am currently on that train interviewing Josh Gad and getting a huge history lesson of what makes that train so iconic. Now, in other movie news this week, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is finally opening this Friday. I'm geeking out about that, and I sat down with one of the most legendary actors of all time, Kurt Russell. All right, so I really want to see Snake join the Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, what do you think he would do in that group?
Unfortunately.
Snake could care less about any of them or any of the things they do or who they are. He just wants to get further away from the galaxy, right? If he could, he might want to steal one of their spaceships and try to figure out how to run the thing and ram it into a planet and get rid of himself. I mean, he's a different guy.
Someone call John Carpenter right now and we'll do like a crossover.
Though, that years ago, I did think that it would be, and nobody would listen to me. I thought it'd be great to sort of take a bunch of the characters that the guys that like Bruce Willis and Stallone and Schwarzenegger and whatever,
like the John McClane,
they all had one best character.
Yeah.
That I thought would be interesting in the sort of actionary world. That I thought it'd be fun to put those guys together. So that would have been a realistic version of what Marvel did, but it was like talking to a wall.
Okay,
it was a little ahead of its time, I guess.
Pitch that to me next time.
Yeah, it was like let's go back 30 years and you know what? Try it again.
I will gladly green light.
Because I thought it would have been cool. I thought you could, and let them be the characters that they are. So, my thing about that is that if I was going to be Snake in that, I was going to say, well, the only problem is that I'm going to have to produce the movie because the only thing Snake's going to do is walk in, look at him, and go and leave.
Please get this made. Someone needs to make this. So Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 opens up this Friday. My full interview with Kurt Russell is available on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Fox5DC. This is Kevin McCarthy in Venice, Fox 5 Local News.
And if you want more proof,
super cool for Kevin. That's the best job in the world. He gets to be there and he's putting together packages and information throughout the week. He'll be sending it back. So I'll have to talk to him later and get a little debrief on how that was. Over now, let's go back to the White House. We got already in progress President Trump making his joint statement with President of Palestine. Let's go over there right now to the Roosevelt Room of the White House.
I also applaud the Palestinian Authority's continued security coordination with Israel. They get along unbelievably well. I had meetings, and at these meetings I was actually very impressed and somewhat surprised at how well they get along. They work together beautifully. But there can be no lasting peace unless the Palestinian leaders speak in a unified voice against incitement to violate and violence and hate. There's such hatred, but hopefully there won't be such hatred for very long. All children of God must be taught to value and respect human life and condemn all of those who target the innocent. As part of our efforts to move forward toward peace today, we will also discuss my administration's effort to help unlock the potential of the Palestinian people through new economic opportunities. Lastly, I want to note the positive ongoing partnership between the United States and the Palestinians on a range of issues: private sector development and job creation, regional security, counterterrorism, and the rule of law, all of which are essential to moving forward toward peace. I welcome President Abbas here today as a demonstration of that partnership, that very special partnership that we all need to make it all work. And I look forward to welcoming him back as a great mark of progress and ultimately toward the signing of a document with the Israelis and with Israel toward peace. We want to create peace between Israel and the Palestinians. We will get it done. We will be working so hard to get it done. It's been a long time, but we will be working diligently. And I think there's a very, very good chance, and I think you feel the same way. Mr. President, thank you very much.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فخامة الرئيس دونالد ترامب، أشكركم على دعوتكم الكريمة وحفاوة الاستقبال، وأتطلع إلى العمل مع سيادتكم للتوصل إلى هدفنا المشترك بتحقيق صفقة السلام التاريخية.
Mr. President, Your Excellency, I would like to thank you for this honorable invitation to come and meet with you, and I look much forward to working with you in order to come to that deal, to that historical agreement, historic deal to bring about peace.
خيارنا سيادة الرئيس الاستراتيجي الوحيد هو أن نحقق مبدأ الدولتين، دولة فلسطين بعاصمتها القدس الشرقية لتعيش بأمن وسلام واستقرار إلى جانب دولة إسرائيل على حدود 1967.
Mr. President, our strategic option, our strategic choice is to bring about peace based on the vision of the two-state, a Palestinian state with its capital of East Jerusalem that lives in peace and stability with the state of Israel based on the borders of 1967.
إن تحقيق السلام الشامل والعادل على أساس حل الدولتين يعطي دفعة قوية لتحقيق مبادرة السلام العربية ويعزز التحالف الإقليمي والدولي لمحاربة وهزيمة التطرف والإرهاب وبخاصة داعش الإجرامية التي لا تمت إلى ديننا الحليف بأية صلة، ويتيح الفرصة لأن تقوم الدول العربية والإسلامية بإقامة علاقات طبيعية مع إسرائيل، وهذا بالضبط ما حددته القمم العربية والتي كان آخرها قمة الأردن قبل أسابيع.
Mr. President, for us to bring about a comprehensive and just peace based on the two-state solution, such matter would give a great impetus to the Arab Peace Initiative and the other initiatives, international initiatives, as well as it enables to fight and deter terrorism and fight the criminal ISIS group, ISIS that is totally innocent and has nothing to do with our noble religion. And that also, if we create peace that is just and comprehensive, that will also lead the Arab and the Islamic countries to have normal relations with Israel based as stipulated in the previous Arab summits, the latest of which was the Arab summit in Jordan.
أنا مؤمن فخامة الرئيس بأنكم قادرون على النجاح لأن لديكم الإرادة والرغبة في هذا النجاح، ولذلك نحن إن شاء الله قادمون على فرصة جديدة، على مناسبة جديدة من أجل تحقيق هذا السلام برعايتكم.
Mr. President, we believe that we are capable and able to bring about success to our efforts because, Mr. President, you have the determination and you have the desire to see it become to fruition and to become successful. And we, Mr. President, inshallah, God willing, we are coming into a new opportunity, a new horizon that would enable us to bring about peace in that regard.
إن جميع قضايا الوضع النهائي قابلة للحل، وأنا متأكد أنها قابلة للحل وبما يشمل اللاجئين والأسرى، وذلك استنادا إلى القانون الدولي والشرعية الدولية والمرجعيات المحددة. وقد نصت الاتفاقات السابقة على عدم اتخاذ أي خطوات أحادية من شأنها استباق نتائج مفاوضات الوضع الدائم.
Mr. President, as far as the a permanent solution, we believe that this is possible and able to be resolved. I am firmly believing that this is possibly, we are able to resolve it. And in that, I also believe that we will be able to resolve the issue of the refugees and the issue of the prisoners. According to the international law, according to the terms of the international law, the international legitimacy, and the various relevant terms of reference in that regard, and based on what is stipulated in the previous treaties and agreements, that no unilateral steps must be taken to get ahead of the agreement and discussing those issues.
لقد آن الأوان أن تنهي إسرائيل احتلالها لأرضنا وشعبنا. بعد 50 سنة من الاحتلال، نحن الشعب الوحيد الذي بقي في هذا العالم تحت الاحتلال، ولذلك نريد أن نحصل على حريتنا وعلى كرامتنا وعلى حقنا في تقرير المصير، وأن تعترف إسرائيل بدولة فلسطين كما نحن نعترف بدولة إسرائيل.
Mr. President, it's about time for Israel to end its occupation of our people and of our land. After 50 years, we are the only remaining people in the world that still live under occupation. We are aspiring and want to achieve our freedom, our dignity, and our right to self-determination. And we also want for Israel to recognize the Palestinian state, just as the Palestinian people recognize the state of Israel.
أؤكد لكم يا فخامة الرئيس أننا نربي أطفالنا وأحفادنا وأولادنا على ثقافة السلام وأننا نسعى ليعيشوا بأمن وحرية وسلام مثل باقي أطفال العالم هم والأطفال الإسرائيليون.
Mr. President, I affirm to you that we are raising our youth, our children, our grandchildren on a culture of peace, and we are endeavoring to bring about security, freedom, and peace for our children to live like the other children in the world, along with the Israeli children in peace, freedom, and security.
أنا أحمل معي معاناة وأمل الشعب الفلسطيني لنجعل من الأرض المقدسة للديانات السماوية الثلاث اليهودية والمسيحية والإسلام ملاذاً يوفر الأمن والأمانة والسلام والاستقرار والعدل للجميع.
Mr. President, I bring with me today the message of the suffering of my people, as well as their aspirations and hope, the hopes and the aspiration of the Palestinian people from the Holy Land, from that land where the three monotheist religions thrived, and the Jewish faith, the Christian faith, and the Muslim faith, where they all coexist together to foster it in an environment of security, peace, and stability, and love for all.
أننا نؤمن يا فخامة الرئيس أننا قادرون بقيادتكم الشجاعة وحكمتكم وقدرتكم التفاوضية على إنهاء هذه المعاناة، ونعتمد على الله ثم عليكم، وسنكون شركاء حقيقيين لكم لتحقيق معاهدة سلام تاريخية برعايتكم وقيادتكم.
Mr. President, I believe that we are capable under your leadership and your stewardship, to your courageous stewardship and your wisdom. We are, and as well as your great negotiating ability, I believe with the grace of God and with all of your effort, we believe that we can we can be partners, true partners to you, to bring about a historic peace treaty under your stewardship to bring about peace.
Now, Mr. President, with you we have hope. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So we're going to start a process. We've spoken to Bibi Netanyahu. We've spoken to many of the great Israeli leaders. We've spoken with many of your great representatives. Many of them are here today for lunch with us. We'll start a process which hopefully will lead to peace. Over the course of my lifetime, I've always heard that perhaps the toughest deal to make is the deal between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Let's see if we can prove them wrong. Okay? Okay. Good. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
This translated.
So that was the joint statement there from the President Abbas and President Trump. And right underneath me here, Veronica Cleary is reporting on this, getting some information. She's been tweeting. She's one of our reporters. tweeted throughout sort of the statement with some quotes from President Trump saying that he would like to see the signing of a document of peace. Just wanted to take that tweet full screen for you guys to see. You can follow her along on Twitter and follow her reports as well on the evening shows, her live usual political reports. She's often at the White House press briefing as well, covering Sean Spicer, who will be coming up later. So we're going to bring you back to the Senate Judiciary Committee, where this is ongoing. Earlier, during President Trump's joint statement, we heard from Ted Cruz, who was questioning James Comey there on the stand, and now he's answering some more questions there in the spotlight. Let's listen in.
You had some experience in this kind of decision. In 2003, you admirably appointed a special prosecutor, Patrick Fitzgerald, when the Attorney General, then John Ashcroft, recused himself from involvement in the investigation concerning whether the Bush administration officials illegally disclosed the identity of an undercover CIA official. Are there any differences materially between that situation and this one, so far as the reasons to appoint a special counsel?
Well, I think both situations, as with all investigations that touch on people who've been actors in a political world, involve considerations of actual conflict of interest and appearance of conflict of interest. And I'm not going to talk about the current situation. In that situation, my judgment was that the credibility of the investigation into the leak of the CIA officer's identity would be best served by not having it overseen by myself, because I was a political appointee, and appointing someone and giving him the authority to run it separate from the political leadership of the Department of Justice. That was my judgment in that circumstance. I don't know what judgment the acting Attorney General will make. I'm sure he'll consider many of the same things.
Has he asked for your advice?
I'm not going to say, Senator, because I wouldn't. When I was DAG, I didn't want people talking about what their conversations with me, so I'll do the same for him.
So far as the investigation, the ongoing investigation into Trump associates and their potential collusion with the Russian meddling in our election, will you be providing any updates to the American people?
Certainly not before the matter is concluded. And then, depending upon how the matter is concluded, I mean, some matters are concluded with criminal charges, and then there's a public accounting and a charging document. Other matters, as was the case with the email investigation, end with no charges, but some statement of some sort. Others end with no statement. I don't know yet. And obviously, I'd want to do that in close coordination with the department.
Will you make recommendations to, presumably it would be the Deputy Attorney General or the Special Prosecutor, if one is appointed, as to whether criminal charges should be brought?
I don't know in this case in particular, but in general, we almost always do, especially the highest profile matters.
But you cannot yourself pursue criminal charges, correct?
Correct.
I think that's important for the American people to understand, because it bears on the question of whether a special prosecutor ought to be appointed. The FBI may inspire great credibility and trust, but the FBI cannot bring charges. Neither can the intelligence committees do so, nor can an independent commission. Only the Deputy Attorney General or a special prosecutor designated by him, correct?
Correct.
Let me close, because I am running out of time. Have you been questioned at all by the Inspector General in connection with the inquiry that I understand is ongoing into a number of the topics that we've been discussing here?
Yes, I've been interviewed. The Inspector General is inspecting me and looking at my conduct in the course of the email investigation, which I know this sounds like a crazy thing to say. I want that inspection, because I want my story told, because some of it's classified, but also if I did something wrong, I want to hear that. I don't think I did, but yeah, I've been interviewed, and I'm sure I'll be interviewed again.
Do you have any regrets, or are there any things you would do differently in connection with either the comments you made at the time you closed the investigation, or when you then indicated to Congress that you were, in effect, reopening it?
Yeah. The honest answer is no. I've asked myself that a million times because, Lordy, has this been painful? The only thing I regret is it maybe answering the phone when they called to recruit me to be FBI director when I was living happily in Connecticut. And
we would welcome you back to Connecticut.
Yeah, but I can't. And I've gotten all kinds of rocks thrown at me, and this has been really hard. But I think I've done the right thing at each turn. I'm not on anybody's side. So hard for people to see that. But I've asked that a million times. Should you have done this? Should you have done that? And the honest answer, I don't mean to say arrogant, is I wouldn't have done it any differently. Somehow I'd have prayed it away, wished that I was on the shores of the Connecticut Sound. But failing that, I don't have any regrets.
I want to ask one last question unrelated to this topic on the issue of gun violence. Would you agree that universal background checks would help with law enforcement and prevention of gun violence?
The more able we are to keep guns out of the hands of criminals and spouse abusers and all the better. So the more information we have, the better for law enforcement perspective.
I'll take that as a yes. Thank you.
Before I call on Senator Tillis, I think we have one member that if that member is going to come back for first round, then we have 3 or 4, maybe 5 of us that want a second round. So I hope that people will get back here so we know exactly how many people we have, out of courtesy to the Director Comey. Senator Tillis.
Director Comey, thank you for being here. I'm always impressed with your composure and your preparation. And I want to get to a couple of other things, maybe first, then if I have time, come back to what the hearing has been predominantly about. When you briefed us last year, I think that you said that there were ongoing investigations on Homeland Security, potential terrorists, either homegrown or foreign-inspired investigations in every state. Is that still the case?
Yes.
Do you have can you give me roughly an idea of the number of investigations that is?
Yeah, it's just north of 1,000.
Just north of 1,000.
Yeah, we have that caseload has stayed about the same since we last talked about it. Some have closed, some have opened, but about 1,000 homegrown violent extremist investigations in the United States.
And at the time, I also asked the question about to what extent that you can discuss in this setting were people who are the target of those investigations, persons who came in through various programs where questions about vetting have been raised as whether or not they're accurate. At the time, there were 12.5, I think, that you may have estimated.
I'm going to bring you over now to some tape playback from inside the Oval Office. This is the president of Palestine and also President Trump together in the Oval Office that we're just getting in on this feed. Check it out.
Say it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, guys, it looks like that's all we had of that quick brief meeting inside the Oval Office. Earlier, we brought you the Roosevelt Room. That's where they were making their joint statement about peace. We're going to bring you back to, I think this is pretty interesting. If you guys think it's interesting, in the Senate Judiciary Committee and James Comey still testifying on the Russian connections and their dealings with the presidential election, answering some hard-hitting questions from various people there. So we'll leave it on there for a little bit, and I'll bring you some more updates if we have it on the situation in Billerica, Massachusetts, as well as the continued search and possible tip that we got this morning about the sighting of the escaped prisoner in Howard County. We'll bring that to you if we have more info on that.
Without 702, how much more of the remaining half would be harmed?
Well, the 702 actually addresses a different challenge. Yep. Losing 702 would be disastrous because it would lose our window.
It is relevant in these investigations.
It is,
yeah.
Because
that's what I mean. So half of the physical assets you can't already get access to. Then there's the metadata and all the other information that would be instructive to these investigations. So by going dark, do we mean 100%?
Well, we're headed towards 100%. 702 is our window into the really bad guys overseas. And if we close that window, I don't know why on earth we would close that window.
So we have thousands of investigations of potential homeland security threats, evenly split by either people who have self-radicalized or some who have been influenced, some who have come over in refugee programs, that we will basically pull the rug out from under you in terms of being able to actively investigate them, or I should say expeditiously investigate them.
Will certainly significantly impair our ability to investigate them. And that's what folks often say, why don't you get metadata? You can't convict somebody and incapacitate them based on metadata.
You got to drill down. Director Comey, in my remaining time, I want to go back to the investigation. And I just want to give you another opportunity to maybe finish by explaining the context that you were operating in. But I want to create the context going back to when the investigation first began. It was already a part of media attention. I think on June the 27th, the then Attorney General met with the spouse of someone who's subject to an act.
Guys, check out these pictures of a live shot in St. Louis, Missouri. This is the flooding that is happening there. Now, we've heard throughout the week of just terrible flooding and storms and tornadoes in the South and the Midwest, including at least a dozen or so deaths in Texas, Arkansas, throughout sort of that southern area. This is the Midwest now, and they're dealing with a lot of flooding. This is a highway, it looks like, and we're getting this feed in live. Just a little shot to show you what they're going through weather-wise. While here in D.C., it's pretty nice, pretty spring-like weather. Here's a live shot of the White House, actually the outside of the White House. A lot of wind today, and I know the pollen's been acting up. I've definitely been a little sneezy from it myself, but that's the weather here. That's springtime in D.C., but over in St. Louis, not a pretty picture. Lots of flooding, lots of damage. And like I said, at least a dozen people throughout the South have been reported to have actually died, including a few children in Texas and lots of flooding and winds in Arkansas. A few people killed from severe weather. So scary stuff there in the Midwest and the South.
Is that common?
For an FBI director to do that?
Yeah.
I've never heard of it. I never imagined it ever until this circumstance.
Was there some logic in that at the time that you were making that decision based on the information that you were provided? Was there the same sort of thought process that you're going through there to have it rise to that level that then led to your October 28th notification of Congress that you had to look at other evidence that had been identified on Anthony Weiner's PC? What I'm trying to do is say it looks like you were trying to provide as much transparency and as much real-time information as you had.
Yeah.
And then on November the 6th, the FBI apparently moved heaven and earth and got something done in a matter of days that they thought was going to take beyond the election. But you were in that pressure cooker. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to glue together, I think, the decision for your actions on July the 5th and how I think there's parallels between that and what you ultimately did on October the 28th and then November the 6th, and I'll yield back the remaining of my time for the answer.
And I've lived my whole life caring about the credibility and the integrity of the criminal justice process, that the American people believe it to be and that it be in fact fair, independent, and honest. And so what I struggled with in the spring of last year was, how do we credibly complete the investigation of Hillary Clinton's emails if we conclude there's no case there? The normal way to do it would be to have the Department of Justice announce it. And I struggled as we got closer to the end of it with a number of things that had gone on, some of which I can't talk about yet, that made me worry that the department leadership could not credibly complete the investigation and decline prosecution without grievous damage to the American people's confidence in the justice system. And then the capper was, and I'm not picking on the Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, who I like very much, but her meeting with President Clinton on that airplane was the capper for me. And I then said, you know what, the department cannot by itself credibly end this. The best chance we have as a justice system is if I do something I never imagined before, step away from them and tell the American people, look, here's what the FBI did, here's what we found, here's what we think. And that offered us the best chance of the American people believing in the system, that it was done in a credible way. That was a hard call for me to make, to call the Attorney General that morning and say, I'm about to do a press conference and I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to say. And I said to her, I hope someday you'll understand why I think I have to do this. Well, look, I wasn't loving this. I knew this would be disastrous for me personally, but I thought this is the best way to protect these institutions that we care so much about. And having done that, and then having testified repeatedly under oath, we're done, this was done in a credible way, there's no there, that when the Anthony Weiner thing landed on me on October 27th, and there was a huge, this is what people forget, new step to be taken, we may be finding the golden missing emails that would change this case. If I were not to speak about that, it would be a disastrous, catastrophic concealment. It was an incredibly painful choice, but actually not all that hard, between very bad and catastrophic. I had to tell Congress that we were taking these additional steps. I prayed to find a third door. I couldn't find it. 2 actions, speak or conceal. I don't think many reasonable people would do it differently than I did, no matter what they say today. If you were standing there staring at that on October 28th, would you really conceal that? So I spoke. Again, the design was to act credibly, independently, and honestly so the American people know the system's not rigged in any way. And that's why I felt transparency was the best path. In July, and then I wasn't seeking transparency. In October, I sent that letter only to the chairs and rankings. Yeah, did I know they were going to leak it? Of course. I know how Congress works, but I did not make an announcement at that point. And then my amazing people moved heaven and earth to do what was impossible, to get through those emails by working 24 hours a day, and then said, honestly, sir, we found tons of new stuff, doesn't change our view. And I said, are you sure? Don't do it just because you're under pressure. They said, we're sure. We don't believe there's a case against Hillary Clinton. And I said, then by God, I got to tell Congress that, and no, I'm going to get a storm at me for that. But what I can promise you all along is, I said to people, you may think we're idiots, we're honest people. We made judgments trying to do the right thing, and I believe, even with hindsight, we made the right decisions. And I'm sorry for that long answer.
Director Comey, we have 7 times 6 is 42 minutes. I hope you won't want to take a break.
I'm made of stone.
Thank you. On March the 6th, I wrote to you asking about the FBI's relationship with the author of the Trump-Russia dossier, Christopher Steele. Most of these questions have not been answered, so I'm going to ask them now. Prior to the Bureau launching the investigation of the alleged ties between the Trump campaign and Russia, did anyone from the FBI have interactions with Mr. Steele regarding the issue?
It's not a question that I can answer in this forum. As you know, I've briefed you privately on this, and if there's more that's necessary, then I'd be happy to do it privately.
Have you ever represented to a judge that the FBI had interaction with Mr. Steele, whether by name or not, regarding alleged ties between the Trump campaign and Russia prior to the Bureau launching its investigation of the matter?
I have to give you the same answer, Mr. Chairman.
This one I'm going to expect an answer on. Do FBI policies, just the policies, allow it to pay an outside investigator for work another source is also paying him for as well? Want me to repeat it? Do FBI policies allow it to pay an outside investigator for work that another source is also paying that investigator for?
I don't know for sure as I sit here. Possibly is my answer, but I'll get you a precise answer.
In writing?
Sure.
Okay. Did the FBI provide any payments whatsoever to Mr. Steele related to the investigation of Trump associates?
I'm back to my first, I can't answer in this forum.
Was the FBI aware that Mr. Steele reportedly paid his sources, who in turn paid their sub-sources to make the claim in the dossier?
Same answer, sir.
Here's one you ought to be able to answer. Is it vital to know whether or not sources have been paid in order to evaluate their credibility? And if they have been paid, doesn't that information need to be disclosed if you're relying on that information in seeking approval for investigative authority?
I think in general, yes. I think it is vital to know.
The FBI and the Justice Department have provided me material inconsistent answers in closed settings about its reported relationship with Mr. Steele, will you commit to fully answering the questions from my March 6th and April 28th letter?
So here, if you guys are watching with us, you're watching FBI Director James Comey answer questions about the continuing investigation if, in fact, Russia had any influence on our election. He went on to say, if you guys heard it, it makes him mildly nauseous to think that they had anything to do with it. That is his quote today. So this is going on live throughout the morning. We're going to go back and forth. I'm going to bring you over to a little playback from inside the White House one more time. Check this out. Some video of a working lunch of the president there with Mahmoud Abbas. Check it out.
Certainly peace between the Palestinians and Israel. And Mike, to say something.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to welcome the President and his entire delegation here to the White House. It is good to see you again. My family and I had the privilege of your hospitality during a Christmas visit just a few short years ago, and we welcome you and look very much forward to our discussions.
He's made great progress, hasn't he? When you think of it, he's doing a great job. And Rex is doing a fantastic job also. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you. You guys can tell the door behind you. Thank you, Brad.
So just a quick little lunch playback there. Vice President Pence seated next to him. You can see Jared Kushner there as well down the end of the table. This was the working lunch inside the White House earlier. I'm not sure how much more we'll have of this. And they've rewound it a little bit. Check it out.
It's a great honor to have President Abbas with us. We'll be having lunch together. We'll be discussing details of what has proven to be a very difficult situation between Israel and the Palestinians. And let's see if we can find a solution. It's something that I think is frankly maybe not as difficult as people have thought over the years, but we need two willing parties. We believe Israel is willing, we believe you're willing, and if you both are willing, we're going to make a deal. So I want to thank everybody. I want to thank Rex Tillerson for being here. Rex, would you have anything to say?
Well, Mr. President, I think it's a historic opportunity because there are a number of positive conditions in place, and I know under your leadership and the willingness of the President, the Prime Minister, that we hope good things will happen.
Thank you, Rex. And Vice President Mike Pence, sitting right here, has been a long-time supporter of peace, and certainly peace between the Palestinians and Israel. And Mike, to say something?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to welcome the President and his entire delegation here to the White House. It is good to see you again. My family and I had the privilege of your hospitality during a Christmas visit just a few short years ago, and we welcome you and look very much forward to our discussions.
He's made great progress, hasn't he? When you think of it, he's doing a great job, and Rex is doing a fantastic job also. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you.
President, do you have a timetable? Thank you.
All right. And speaking of Vice President Pence, earlier this morning, he hosted an event with Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos. I'm going to bring that video to you once I get it ready. I want to have you guys see the DC school children that were involved in that and the little speech that was made earlier with Vice President Pence. So that's coming up shortly. We'll bring you back to the Senate Judiciary Committee now.
In an open setting. I don't know enough about what was said in the FOIA case to know whether that makes my answer silly, but I just want to be so careful about talking about grand jury matters. So I'm not going to answer that, sir.
Senator Feinstein.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Director, first of all, thank you for your fortitude going through this. Appreciate it. In your testimony, you noted that the first half of the fiscal year, the FBI was unable to access the content of more than 3,000 mobile devices, even though the FBI had the legal authority to do so. I'm familiar with one of those, and that is the Southern California terrorist attack, where 14 people were killed in San Bernardino. Of those 3,000 devices that you weren't able to access, can you say how many of these were related to a counterterrorism event?
I don't know as I sit here, Senator, but we can get you that information.
Yeah, I'd really very much appreciate that. We had looked at legislation that would take into consideration events of national security and provide that devices, there must be some way of even going before a judge and getting a court order to be able to open a device.
All right, guys, bringing to you now the event from earlier this morning with Vice President Pence and Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos highlighting school choice. Check it out right here.
Of course, there are millions more families on waiting lists for charter schools, hoping their child will be able to attend one. Parents want their children to have the option to attend these schools and others that fit their individual needs for the simple reason that they're not satisfied with their current school, and they believe access to options can give their child a better opportunity to learn and thrive. I believe this should be a right for every parent, not a privilege. We shouldn't restrict parents' choices based strictly on a family's income or zip code. We have some great witnesses to the power of parental choice here today. By shining...
I'd like you to say something. I found it so interesting. I've been listening for 2 minutes here. He's doing a great job, right? Would you like to finish up?
I want you to go ahead, please.
This is very exciting. So yesterday I said that our spending bill was a win for the American people, which is exactly what it was, an amazing day. And this is what winning for young children and kids from all over the country looks like. The Opportunity Scholarship Program that we're funding allows families in the inner city of our nation's capital to leave failing public schools and attend a private school, making an extraordinary difference in these incredible young lives. You're just so lucky. You happy about it? The results speak for themselves. 98% of scholarship recipients represent their high school diplomas, and they're really very, very special. They go into tremendous successes. So I think you're going to all be very, very successful. You have a big start, right? Great start. This is a beautiful event, and I'm thrilled to be here. I congratulate the families in the audience. The families are very proud of the children. Are you all proud of your children, I hope? Anybody very proud of you. During my campaign for president, I promised to fight for school choice. Very important. It was featured in my joint address to Congress, and today I'm calling on all lawmakers to work with us to help extend school choice to millions more children all across the United States of America, including millions of low-income Hispanic and African-American children who deserve the same chance as every other child in America to live out their dreams and fill up their hearts and be educated at the top level. Every child has the right to fulfill their potential. And if we do our jobs, then we will never have to tell young, striving Americans to defer their dreams for another day or for another decade. We're not going to do that. I'm honored to be here. I'm so proud to be with these wonderful families and wonderful children. And I'm deeply excited for the amazing things that lie ahead for these truly inspiring young Americans right here in Washington, D.C., our capital. And I will say that I'm very, very proud of all of you. You know, I wasn't supposed to be here. It wasn't on my schedule. When I heard what was going on with Betsy, who's doing such a great job, I said, well, I'll come in and I'll interrupt Betsy. Maybe I'll be allowed to stay a few minutes. but she's a great woman and doing a fantastic job. Congratulations to all of you, okay, and to your families. Congratulations, everybody. Thank you.
I have the opportunity of introducing this young lady, Sagonish Tadele, who is a recipient of a parental choice program and who has done so much in her years in high school to help share this with other students. But she's going to tell a bit about her story right now.
Thank you, Secretary DeVos, Mr. Vice President, and Mr. President. I'm honored to be here. My name is Sagonish Tadele. I'm a senior at Georgetown Station. I was born and raised in Washington, D.C. 20 years ago, both of my parents emigrated to the U.S. from Ethiopia. As a first-generation college-bound student, I've earned the opportunity to fulfill my dreams and the dreams of my parents as well. Without the Opportunity Scholarship Program in place for me and others like me, I would not have been able to move forward and pursue the academic dreams. This fall, I will be attending American University to study international relations and public policy. I will always take with me the attitude to achieve and to succeed. Through our school community's outreach program, Saturday School, I'm able to inspire and encourage young 7th grade girls to be the best possible versions of themselves. Because of the quality education that I receive at visitation, I'm able to mentor 7th grade girls in the Washington metropolitan area. Having obtained a strong education from an all-girls school, I feel strongly about the endless possibilities that young women can achieve given the opportunity to have an education. Whether or not one decides to attend a traditional, public, or private school, I believe that each and every student deserves the chance to obtain an education that best meets their needs. I would like to thank all those who make the program possible and hope that the program will continue to serve more and more students to come. Thank you.
At this time, I'm very pleased and honored to introduce the Vice President of the United States.
Well, on behalf of the First Family, it was going to be my privilege to welcome you to the White House today. But then the President decided, when he heard you were across the hallway, he decided to come by and say hello, just to tell you all how proud he is of you, how proud he is of your parents, and how proud we are to continue the DC Scholarship Program. And we're so grateful to have someone who's been so dedicated to opening doors of opportunities for American children and families all across this country for so many years as the Secretary of Education. Would you join me in thanking Betsy DeVos for Secretary DeVos is fighting every day to give America's children the world-class education that every American child deserves. And on behalf of the President and families across America, Betsy, we thank you. And we thank you. Today is just an early installment of the impact that you're having on expanding educational opportunities for all of our children. And to Sagonish Tadele, wow, what an impressive young lady. Give her another round of applause. She actually rewrote a little of her speech right at the very beginning. She added greetings to the Secretary, the Vice President, and to the President, which I thought was very impressive on your feet. And congratulations on all your great success. You really are. You really are a wonderful example of why President Trump is fighting so hard to expand educational opportunities for all of our families in the country. And we thank you for being here. To all the advocates, to the administrators, especially to the parents who are here, the parents of these wonderful, beautiful children who are gathered here, to all the great teachers who are here. welcome to the White House. You are making a difference each and every day in the lives of all these wonderful kids. Give yourself a round of applause. We have here leaders and students from K through 5 grade school, middle school and high school, from 3 private, 1 charter school, and 1 public school. And we're proud to have all of you kids here. St. Anthony's Catholic School, Georgetown Visitation, Basis DC Charter, just to name a few. And all the way from Indianapolis, Indiana, we have Thomas Carr Howe Community High School. Let's welcome all these great kids and these great students.
All right, guys, we're going to take a pause on this for a moment. This happened earlier where the president surprised the vice president with the D.C. school children there. It's nice to see some D.C. schools represented talking to the Secretary of Education. We're going to get a live update now going up to 20 miles northwest of Boston. Here we go to Billerica, Massachusetts for an update on that crash, that auto crash that we saw earlier this morning. Here are police.
Information that we have at this point indicates that several hundred customers inside of the building that has travel lanes, red lanes, and
Looks like we're having a slight audio issue up there. We're going to see if they effort the sound on their end and fix that. And if not, we'll jump out of this and bring you somewhere else.
As this vehicle began to enter the building following the case behind the car in front of it, it suddenly accelerated travel inside the building and ultimately the driver saw the crash of the city block fire. At this point, we are confirming that one man died of there are another 9 individuals who are at the hospital with treated for injuries, as well as one family member of an individual who is deceased to the crash. So we have all that, we now have 7 people, 8 people with serious injuries, and 2 others with life-threatening injuries. They are at various hospitals across the area. We have on scene of infrastructure for police and fire, as well as the state police, cars, the active reconstruction section of the state police. This could be a long investigation. As I mentioned, several hundred people on scene were in the process of talking to those folks, gathering information about what happened, what we're doing, construction, assessment, folks with the vehicle to rule out any issues with the vehicle, anything else that may have contributed. So it's going to be an ongoing what we know about the driver is he is difficult. The only information that allows the drive the car. Folks are gathering around the individual who is driving the car is in the we don't know. Preliminary information we have right now suggests that this is a crash accident.
We don't know that. We're going to be looking at all of those things. That's all part of the investigation as we dig into the background.
How is the driver? Is he one of the injured? And,
He is not He has not been hospitalized.
So does that mean that was not a medical condition?
No, he's just not hospitalized at this point.
Mary, what about the injuries to the people? Can you describe the injuries? What were they? Head injuries?
From what we know at this point, some people have head injuries, a number of back, leg, torso injuries.
Is the driver being cooperative? Since he wasn't injured, is he able to tell?
It's all part of the investigation at this point. I don't know that. A number of years, but I don't know that. I do not have that at this point yet. Some of this information is very new, so I don't have that information yet.
Can you explain where the victims were? You said a male and two females. You know, he accelerated up. I mean, he was in a lane.
So there are lanes across the building. There are red lanes alternating with blue lanes. The red lanes are for the cars. The blue lanes are safe lanes for people to stand in. But obviously people are crossing back and forth because they may be looking at a car that's in lane number 2. So there's a lot of people moving through. The cars are moving across the building fairly slowly, following as you would maybe in traffic, a couple of paces behind each other. As cars exit one end of the garage, other cars are being brought through. So there were folks struck in both the red and the blue lanes, both people crossing and people standing on the sidelines, if you will.
And as we understand, both inside and outside.
No, it's inside. Well, there are more people outside, but to look at the cars, primarily people would be inside looking at those cars.
So all the victims struck were struck inside the building?
We don't know that yet. If there may be folks who were close to the other side of that wall who were injured as well. We're looking at all of that.
Can you confirm the distance he traveled? One witness said about 80 yards inside that warehouse. Is that true?
It's the length of the warehouse. I don't know the length of that length, but it's a fairly long building. I mean, a number of cars could line up
Is 80
the length of the car.
a fair estimate? Is that an accurate
80 yards.
length of a football field?
Yeah, probably about a football field. We're looking at all that. We have reconstruction here.
Can you say anything about the first responders, some of their police officers who happen to be there on the detail?
There are always officers, both fire officers and police officers, who are here on Wednesdays for the detail. I'm working details for the auction because it draws such a large crowd. So there were, in fact, probably about 4 police officers and at least 1 fireman here working details. As you can see, this was a coordinated response. The chief will speak to that. People from a number of departments responding to help both in controlling the scene and obviously assisting the injured. That's all part of the investigation as we gather all of that. I'm going to turn it over to Chief Rosa.
Thank you very much. I'm not in a position to answer any questions about the incident. I just want to extend our sympathies to the community, to the Linway employees, and especially to the victims and victims' families here. This is a very tragic incident. Again, preliminary information would tell us that this was an accident. We're very grateful for the mutual aid help that we received from many communities around us in the greater Lowell area, Bedford, Tewksbury, Wilmington, how many other communities? Burlington, Chelmsford. Just want to especially reach out to those communities and thank them for their assistance. This was a large and chaotic scene and a lot of bystanders around, so it was a very chaotic scene. We just want to thank all those other first responders who assisted us in this incident today.
Chief, any accidents here before? Have there been any incidents that you've had to respond to?
That'll all be part of the investigation.
Who has oversight for this facility here, like in terms of safety and things like that? Who's the person that's oversight over that?
Well, all workplaces are controlled by OSHA. So all workplaces, the safety of those folks are controlled by OSHA. So obviously we appreciate your patience. If there is anything significant happens, we'll provide new information. But this is going to be a fairly long, ongoing investigation. Thank you.
So there you have it, guys. Just preliminary information about that crash from earlier this morning that we brought you in Billerica, Massachusetts. So we don't know a ton, and I apologize for the sound on the earlier end of this feed. It was faulty, so our source actually switched midway, and we got the sound. If you can make it out, and it was really faint, we had the volume up as much as we could. I believe she said there have been 3 deaths.
Well, we were fortunate that we had a firefighter on a detail there. He was able to radio in a quick update and request resources, so we're able to start resources, that we wouldn't normally know about needing right away. And as he evaluated, he was walking around and calling for more resources. So we're able to get a lot of things, heading this way well in advance of what we normally would, if we were just responding to a call. So we do train for mass casualty incidents like this, hoping never to have to use it. So that we have plans in place for these types of situations, and that's what we were falling back on for the number of resources that we needed. And fortunately, the neighboring departments, the area hospitals, the area paramedic units, private ambulances all kicked in and made the system work the way it's designed to.
It sounded from the radio.
I believe there was a 9 or 10 between the area departments and the private ambulances. The Billerica ambulance, the first one there, set up triage. They didn't transport, but I believe all of them transported at least once, some maybe twice.
One med flight or two?
The med flight didn't come out of here. I believe it was out of Lowell General. I'm not positive on that. I believe one.
Can you discuss the triage process, sir, and also the coordination that you had to do with area emergency rooms and trauma centers?
We really didn't get involved in that part. The system is designed to get the resources here, and then from there they determine what facilities they go to, and not trying not to overwhelm one facility.
Chief, can you describe what the first responders saw when he arrived?
I honestly don't know. I have not had a chance to speak with the people yet. We've been involved, setting up for the investigation part and stuff. So.
Were people, either your people or just everyday people, were people trying to perform CPR?
I honestly don't know that at this point.
You guys, last question.
How about the building? Did you need to do anything to shore up the building? Was there any danger of further collapse?
We are working. We have assistance from Bedford Fire, and we're setting up, trying to stabilize the building, in which we are doing now, shoring up to make sure the building is stable. Thomas.
Is it a miracle that there wasn't more loss of life when you looked at what you saw there?
Obviously, it could have been a lot worse with the number of people that were there. It's a very dynamic situation on a Wednesday. They're a very busy place.
Chief, do these places have to have a permit with you or through you in order to operate, or with the city?
No, everything, as far as I'm aware of, everything in this building is their first-class operation. Everything is up to date.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Tom Conway.
All right, so it looks like that is it. I wanted to pause there for a second to make sure we got that statement in. So if you heard it earlier, the sound was a little faulty, but we got the information. There have been 3 fatalities. They said 1 man, 2 women, and I believe she said 9 injuries. So they dealt with a mass casualty situation up here at this auto auction. It's called Linway Auto Auction in Billerica, Massachusetts, 20 miles northwest of Boston, if you're familiar with that layout. We also have a breaking situation out of Lake Forest, I believe, Illinois. We're going to bring you there now. A possible shooting at a college. I'm going to bring you more information once I have it.
Whoa, timber. Yeah.
All right, guys, this is the scene actually in Irving, Texas. So we told you a different location earlier. This is Irving, Texas at North Lake College. This following lots of series of events in Texas. We saw the stabbing earlier at UT Austin earlier this week, and now this is a live event happening. This is raw chopper video right here. Police say there's an active shooter at North Lake College. The school is on lockdown. Students are being told to barricade themselves. We saw a bunch of students evacuating earlier, sort of coming out in lines from the school. We're going to bring you more as we have it. Viewer discretion is advised on this video. It is raw, and we are just taking this from that live video. But again, police say there's an active shooter at this Dallas Community College, North Lake College in Irving, Texas. That's the Dallas area. This scene is currently live. We're going to try to effort some more information for you before we bring you anything else new. I also have former President Obama is speaking for his second or third public appearance in Chicago. He's starting to ramp up those speaking events in Chicago. Going to be talking about his presidential library. I want to bring you that as well. We'll stay right here on this scene of this active shooter until we find out some more information. Here we go, guys, with the most recent tweet from North Lake College. Check it out. They say they're still on intruder lockdown. Go to nearest room and lock down. If not on campus, stay away. Police is on this scene. In the bottom right-hand corner of your scene, you see, or your screen, you see the aerial footage here of North Lake College. It's a community college in the Dallas area that is officially on lockdown, according to officials and police. Irving police are saying there was an active shooter situation. We don't know if that is still going on, if it is contained. You can see here in that chopper view, lots of police presence on campus, saying that there was an active shooter situation at this college this morning. These images show a lot of police presence and students. Earlier we saw running out of the building. It seems to be currently still on lockdown. Not a lot of whole new information to bring you regarding this, but we're going to continue to monitor social media to bring you more information about this situation ongoing in Irving, Texas. You guys remember earlier this week, we brought you coverage here, and you may have seen it somewhere else too, of the suspect who shot the paramedic also in Dallas, another situation that Dallas police had to deal with this week before he was later found. That suspect was later found in someone's home committing suicide in that home. So just a slew of events here that we've seen in Dallas, and then of course the stabbing at University of Texas at Austin that we also covered earlier this week. So a lot of violence on campus coming out of Texas this week. Really unfortunate that this is the type of stuff that we do have to cover, but this is the ongoing situation here in Irving, Texas. You can see this chopper footage of Northlake College. Lots of police presence here. Students are apparently still on lockdown. We have not heard otherwise yet, but I'm trying to effort some more information from Dallas police and the campus itself about what the current situation is of this possibly active, still active shooter that police have confirmed there was an active shooter on campus. All right, guys, we lost that chopper feed, actually, of that campus. I'm going to try to find you on a different source. We're going to go back to, or I'm going to show you the scene, actually, in Chicago, where former President Obama is going to come up shortly. This is what it looks like. A little bit of fanfare, some music before he comes out. I believe he's going to be here with Michelle Obama as well. All right, guys, we don't have much more on this college on lockdown situation here, Northlake College in Irving, Texas. I'm grabbing this feed. It's a little bit rough browsing here from KTVT, and our sister station in Memphis has this video. We did lose our own feed for it, so I'm trying to find other ways to get this to you. But again, no new information. I'm going to bring you more if we do find out more about what the current status is, if they've caught the active shooter, if he has been apprehended in some way, if what has been happening to students, but obviously a scary situation and emergency in Irving, Texas. So I'm following Irving Police Department as well as Northlake College on Twitter to kind of see what they put out there. But again, no new information and a little bit of a rough feed of these aerial chopper shots. So we're going to go back to Chicago, where coming up next is former President Obama talking about his presidential library, and that area that he's speaking at is the South Shore Center in Chicago. This is the first time that he will talk about plans for this presidential library, and he and Michelle Obama will both appear at this event. So that's coming up next. You can see them gathering here in the room, getting ready for this event. He's only had a few public engagements, public events since he left the presidency, so this will be one of them.
In Texas, where reports of a college lockdown.
Okay, we got our source back here for the active shooter situation. You can see in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, people running. I'm actually going to bring this full picture here, guys. You can see it a little bit more clear of what's happening here. You see Irving police sort of lining the streets. What looks to be students running out of the schools or classrooms. There's the police presence there on the street. I don't have a lot of new information for you, but I'm going to find out a little bit more about what's happening in this chopper shot before we switch it over. All right, guys, a little more information coming out about this. The scene that you are seeing right here on your screen, these students gathering and being evacuated after an apparent active shooter situation at Northlake College in Irving, Texas. What we do know from initial reports here is that police say a white male wearing an orange tank top was seen on surveillance video carrying a handgun. There were reports of shots being fired, but at this point, it is not clear how many people, if any, were actually hurt. The Dallas County Community College District officials said, asked that the students go on lockdown if they were on campus and then to stay away from the campus if they weren't already there yet. You can see Chopper gathering this footage here, aerials of the school and the parking lot, students walking together, it looks like, to leave the premises or leave the school. The Northlake College said in a tweet, which we brought you earlier, that they were still on intruder lockdown and asked students to go to their nearest room to lock themselves down. That is the information that we have at this point from Irving Police down there in Irving, Texas. We will bring you more updates as we have it on this story. We're going to continue to update it and bring you that. We're going to go back over now to Chicago, where former President Obama is being introduced before his next public appearance here in the south side of Chicago. First time he will talk about his presidential library. That is next. We are going to continue to monitor this scene. If there are any new developments about injuries, any deaths related to this, or any more information about the suspect. Again, a white male apparently wearing an orange tank top caught on surveillance video with a handgun. You see students here coming out. This is terrifying and scarily reminiscent of school shootings that we've seen before. I know throughout my life and my childhood and my teenhood, we've seen this far too often. So hopefully prayers going out to that school. I'm going to switch it over now to Chicago, but keep this, I'll keep a monitor on this to bring you more information.
You know these communities, the lakefront, its parks, you know them well. We have worked together for almost 2 decades, several meetings, old school picnics, and my all-time favorite, the 4th of July on 53rd. You were a Minuteman and I was Lady Liberty. And while you moved on to run the world, I've been holding it down in the Lady Liberty costume every year. Barack and Michelle, you have been and continue to be advocates for Southside communities. You know our strengths, you know our challenges, but you also know that we are better together and that we are strong and resilient neighborhoods. Like you, we are passionate about our children, our young adults, economic growth, schools, and Southside amenities. We were elated when you brought it home by selecting Jackson Park as the site for the Obama Presidential Center. And that's why we're happy that you have chosen to come home to share your plans with us today. We know that we need change. Many of us have been asking for change in our communities. We know we are that change. And we definitely know that as we work together, we can make that change. Yes, we can, and yes, we will. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Hairston. And now I have the honor of presenting to you the mayor of the great city of Chicago, Rahm Emanuel.
Thanks, Michael. I do want to add, as Leslie just noted, this is where Michelle and Barack got married. This is where Amy and I got married. Amy's asking for a recount. In fact, the first thing the president and I did as soon as he arrived is we went and saw just on the other side of the hallway where we both had our respective receptions and our families came together. And it's been a special moment. On a serious note, I do want to say that President Obama and the First Lady Michelle Obama brought dignity, wisdom, and grace to the White House. He brought a great respect for democratic institutions, for history, and for the people, all the people he was elected to serve and represent. Every night, after long and demanding days sometimes when we would talk about opening up a t-shirt shack in Hawaii, and we'd only sell one shirt, one color, white, medium. So we didn't have to think about a lot of other questions. And after those long days, when a lot of people want to hang it up, he would read letters, 10 letters, from the American people. They were not all flattering. Some were downright challenging. But he knew how isolating the White House could be. And he knew it before he got there. But he never wanted to lose touch with the American people or any part of the American family and community. President Obama never lost touch with Chicago, his home. And Chicago never lost touch with President Obama. You know, there are a lot of variables and a lot of differences that come with being mayor, but there's one constant. I teach classes, civic classes, for 8th graders across the city of Chicago. And without a doubt, every time I teach a class and we go to the Q&A section, a young child says, "Was it awesome to work for President Obama? Is he really as cool as he looks and sounds?" I said he was awesome and more. In reality, he's even cooler than he looks on TV. And Sasha and Malia have a different view. Just like Alana and Leia. And then their eyes light up, invariably, and a smile comes across their face because of the power of the example set by our president, President Obama. And one thing's also struck me as mayor as I go across and teach these classes across the city. Invariably, there's always a photo of the president or a quote of his. Just like if you go to Boston, there's always a picture or a quote by John F. Kennedy, their favorite son. It's a sign of the strong connection we all have to our friend, our president. President Obama's contribution to the city of Chicago are already immeasurable, and his legacy is just beginning. It speaks volumes that Chicago is where President Obama gave his last speech as president, and Chicago is where he gave his first speech as ex-president. Chicago is where he will carry on his work of educating, mentoring, and inspiring the next generation of leaders who will follow through in his footsteps. It's my honor to introduce Chicago's own, our friend, President Barack Obama and Michelle Obama.
Now wait!
Well, welcome home, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Guys, as President Obama is introduced here, I'm going to bring that sound down for a second. You see a tweet in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, the most updated tweet from Northlake College saying that it's still an intruder lockdown there at the college, that community college in Irving, Texas. They're asking people to stay away from the campus and that police are working on clearing each building on our campus. I've been reading some reports. Some students have posted Instagram videos and different things like that to sort of show what's going on campus. The library being checked out. They are searching every building to clear it. There have been no confirmed injuries. What we're reading are that there were reports of a white male with a buzz cut in an orange tank top that appears to be brandishing a gun, a handgun, in a surveillance video. And there were also reports that students heard shots being fired as they were running through, but those have not been confirmed. So again, not a lot of clarity on that situation, but I'll make sure to bring you updates, especially as the severity of it increases. If it does, we'll bring you that information as well. We're going to keep it here with the sound on former President Obama and keep monitoring the situation in Irving, Texas.
Your vision for the Obama Presidential Center.
Well, first of all, this isn't a formal interview, everybody, because I'm home. Couple people I want to give a shout out to before we start. First of all, I want to thank our outstanding Mayor Rahm Emanuel and his wonderful First Lady, Amy Rue. Give them a big round of applause. We also have here the Senate President and former colleague of mine in the state Senate, John Cullerton and Pam Cullerton. Proud grandparents, I might add, just had a new one. We've got Representative Juliana Stratton here. There she is. We have Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx in the House. And you already heard from our outstanding Alderman Leslie Hairston. Give Leslie a big round of applause. My mother-in-law is also here, Mary Robinson. Valerie Jarrett is here. And Valerie Jarrett's mom, Barbara Bowman, is here, Dr. Barbara Bowman. One of our best friends, Anita Blanchard's here, who delivered our babies. Family. So, and as I just look across the room, you know, we've got so many friends and people we've worked with together for a long time. I want this to be more of a conversation, so you notice I'm not at the podium. I'm not making a formal speech here. What I want to do is just describe the vision of what we hope the Obama Presidential Center will be. And then what we want to do is take some questions, both from Mike and from you. We got a little bit of limited time, so we're not going to be able to answer every question today. But after we're done with this formal program, Mike and other staff will still be here to talk more about it. And this is just the beginning of the process. This is not the end. We're going to be continually in conversations with the community about how we make this work for you. As Ram mentioned, Michelle and I had our wedding reception here. And it was a good party. And we will be celebrating our 25th anniversary this year in October. The first apartment that I ever stayed in Chicago was the Flamingo up in Hyde Park. Yeah. Right across from the Point. The first home that Michelle and I bought was in Eastview Park, right down the street. Michelle was raised a few blocks south in South Shore. Our daughters were born at the University of Chicago Hospital, right down the way. The best things that have happened to me in my life happened in this community. The closest friends that I have made, the start of my life in public service, the values that I learned here in Chicago and that we've now passed on to our children. I owe it all to this community. And so, although we had a formal bidding process to determine where the presidential library was going to be, the fact of the matter was it had to be right here on the south side of Chicago. There really was no alternative.
You guys can see in the upper left-hand corner of your screen a tweet from Irving Police Department. This is the first we've heard of this. They say that they have what appears to be one victim deceased and the shooter has committed suicide. So it sounds like there possibly was a targeted situation there. This is a community college, two-year college outside of Dallas, in the Dallas suburbs in Irving, Texas. We'll have to find out some more information on this, but that is a tweet from the Irving Police Department. And then their latest tweet, they have one more that they've also put out there, a little bit of reassurance here for the community. They say there appears to be no continuing threat, but police will continue to search to make the campus safe. So it sounds like a scary situation there in the Dallas suburbs, but that the students have evacuated, and there apparently has been one death and a suicide of the suspect. We'll continue to monitor this as this goes on, but again, a scary situation there. The students all lining up, evacuating outside of that school. We'll bring you back to former President Obama in Chicago next.
All the people who led to my presidency, the process of struggle and the process of overcoming that I stand on top of. And so there will be a museum embedded in the library. And let's face it, y'all want to see Michelle's dresses and, you know, some of the campaign posters, and, you know, maybe there'll be, you know, some artifacts from the White House and the presidency. Those are all interesting things to pull people in and give them a sense of what this has been all about. But the thing that is most exciting to us is to create an institution that will train the next generation of leadership. The Michelle LeBon Robinsons of today and the Barack Obamas of today, so that they can take up the torch and lead the process of change in the future. And that's why we're calling this a presidential center. And that is why, as many of you saw when you walked in and you saw the design, it's not just a single building, but it's more like a campus. Because what we want this to be is the world's premier institution for training young people and leadership to make a difference in their communities, in their countries, and in the world. That's our goal. And so how is that going to happen? Well, and I'm not going to go into all the details of the programming, and some of it is going to be developed in conversations with many of you who are already doing wonderful things. But part of it is going to be reaching out to schools and community colleges and working with them to get them interested in the process of public policy and government and politics and activism. Part of it is going to be to bring together young people who have already shown leadership in various issues, whether it's criminal justice or climate change or trying to increase opportunities in low-income communities, and giving them the training and the skills and the networks that will allow them to succeed even more. Part of it is going to be a process where we can convene leaders from around the world to speak directly to our young people and inspire them and motivate them and teach them. But we also want this to be a living center in which the community itself feels as if, on an ongoing basis, they can bring their children, participate in activities, listen to concerts, look at lectures, learn how to work a computer, learn how to make a movie, learn how to record music that speaks to the issues of the day, learn how to organize. And that constant living process of building bridges and communities between people, that is what is going to make this thing come alive and make it special. And our belief is that if we do this well, not only will this end up being a world-recognized institution where people from not just around Chicago, not just around the country, but from around the world come to teach and learn and work with each other, but it's also going to be a transformational project for this community. That it can bring economic development opportunities to this community, that it can spark and enhance good work that's already being done to make sure that our kids are always setting their horizons and expectations at a high level, that it is going to be an engine through which we can continually improve and enhance all the strengths that are already here, that we can stabilize communities that are full of hardworking, good people and small businesses and make them thrive even more. That this can be a laboratory where people can learn what works and what doesn't when it comes to community development and social inclusion and bringing about opportunities for more and more young people. So that's how we're viewing this process of construction. It's not just a building, it's not just a park, but hopefully this ends up being a hub around which all of us can see a brighter future for the South Side. And just a couple of details that I want to then share with you, and then we'll move on and open it up to discussion. First of all, a lot of people are interested in the timeline on this. It's going to take about 4 years to build because this is a big project. But I want to emphasize today that even though the buildings themselves and the landscaping and the parks and all that will not be completed for another 4 years, the programming we intend to start this year. We don't want to wait for a building, because this isn't just about buildings. This is about reaching out right now. And part of why I'm so interested in getting the programming started is as somebody who's not been right here in Chicago over the last couple of years, whenever I visit, I tell people Chicago's never looked more beautiful. It has never sparkled more. Last time we were here, it was just one of those beautiful spring days before it gets cold again, and it was just remarkable. And yet, if you ask a lot of people outside of Chicago about Chicago, what's the first thing they talk about? They talk about the violence. And so we can't afford to wait 4 years to start working together. And so what Michelle and I want to do is start now. And I'll just give you one example. One of the things that we will be starting this year is Michelle and I personally are going to donate $2 million to our summer jobs programs here in the community, so that right away young people can get to work, and we can start providing opportunities to all of them. Now, I think my mother-in-law just said, "What?" I should have warned you, Mary. So we'll be working with the city, we'll be working with the county, we'll be working with businesses, because part of what we want to do is reach young people who might be at risk if they don't have something to do during the summers. But part of what we also want to do is to reach older youth who may be prepared for apprenticeships, because one of the things that this project's going to do is generate jobs. We want to make sure that some of those young people can get trained, so that people don't say, well, why didn't you hire anybody from the neighborhood? And the contractor says, well, we didn't have anybody who was trained. Well, let's start the pipeline now so that we can start getting some of those folks trained. So we're going to start the programming right now, but the overall process is going to take about 4 years to complete. What that does, by the way, is give us time then to consult with the community and fine-tune the overall concept. Right now, what many of you saw as you came in, you saw the models, you saw the pictures, that's our basic conception, but it's not fixed yet. We want to continue to have input to make sure that we get this just right, because ultimately this is your center, not just mine. Point number 2, you will notice that as we envision it, it's not just a building. We are looking at transforming Jackson Park so that it once again becomes a people's park. Now, what do I mean by that? Jackson Park was initially designed by Olmsted, in fact, the most famous landscape architect in the country. Designed Central Park and many iconic parks around the country. And Jackson Park is beautiful. But let's face it, and I can say this because Michelle and I lived here a lot, and we went to the Museum of Science and Industry with Millie and Sasha, and it's not like we're outsiders here. When you drive through the park, it feels different than Lincoln Park does. It feels different than Millennium Park does. It is not used in the same way. It is not accessible in the same way. It does not have features of the same sort. It's not as good as it could be. And so part of what we said was, well, if we're going to come in, and the state and the park district and the city have generously agreed to dedicate some portion of park land to this, for this facility, how do we transform the park so it starts looking like Millennium Park and Lincoln Park. And thereby stitches the entire city together so that it's not, well, things are that way on the north side and a different way on the south side. And that's why what you'll see in the design involves children's play centers and a sledding hill, because Michelle always told me she was mad that during the winter she couldn't sled because there was no hill down here. And an outdoor lawn that can be used as an outdoor concert, and the ability to use this amazing lagoon and these wooded islands so that people are actually enjoying the park and their activities in the park. And it creates a sense of life and vibrancy, but it also creates then spillover effects economically all the way throughout the area. Because if this is an attraction where people aren't just going inside a building, but are now coming and they're outside and they're barbecuing and flying kites and listening to music, now, oh, that restaurant right down the street, you know, why don't we try that out? Or, you know, that, look, I forgot, you know, we didn't get something. Well, there's a store right there. Why don't we go pick it up? And so it creates an energy and a dynamism that right now, frankly, is not there at Jackson Park. And I'm just being truthful. It's beautiful, but it doesn't feel the same. Now, here's the catch. So I just want everybody to, because I don't want to be hiding the ball here. In order to make it like that, we are recommending that we close Cornell that runs through right now, and you've got a 6-lane road cutting right through the middle of the park. And the truth is, if you have that road, there's only so much you can do. Because you can't have little kids playing right next to a road. You can't have sledding into the road. You can't walk to the lagoon. You can't go from Stony over the lagoon because there's no place to cross the street. So what we have said is, let's restore Jackson Park to the original vision. And let's make sure that traffic is accommodated both down Lakeshore Drive as well as down along 59th Street. But let's not think that somehow the way things are right now are the way things have to be. I recognize that if you live here and you're trying to get home, you want to make sure that that issue is dealt with properly. And what I want to report to you is that when we got this idea, the first thing we did was start doing traffic studies, started consulting with the Illinois Department of Transportation, the city's Department of Transportation, and we are now confident that we will not be adding commute times as a consequence of closing Cornell. It'll require some modest mitigation efforts, and there will be separate hearings around how to do that in the best way because there are a bunch of options. The truth is, even with the most minimal mitigation efforts, what the traffic study showed was that a commute might be an additional 1 minute to 3 minutes. Now, if you're sitting there for 3 minutes, that's irritating. So we're going to try to get it down to 0 with some additional mitigation. My point, though, is I don't want everybody to get so fixated on the traffic, which is solvable, that we lose sight of what is possible in this area. And for those of you who are wondering why is it that things don't look as good down here as they look up at Millennium Park, for example, or around Lincoln Park, part of it is because they're not cut up in the same ways they used to be, and then what happened? Museum Campus was created. And I was living here when that happened, and at first I was thinking, this is going to be a mess. What's wrong with things now? And then when it was done, everybody's like, oh, That's nice. And it transformed downtown Chicago. The same thing can happen here, but we've got to be bold in terms of how we envision the project. All right? So that's second point. I'm anticipating some questions.
Right. I'm checking them off. I got a
Right.
whole list here. You're just hitting them all. But I got some more. waiting on you.
Point number 3, a lot of people are concerned about jobs, contracts, how does that work? And here's our bottom line. We will exceed whatever historic or legal goals have been mandated in terms of minority and women-owned business participation. I also want to point out, though, that, and again, this is from somebody who lives here, you know that you can cook the numbers to make anything look like people are participating. I mean, that's just true. I'm sorry, but so beyond sort of whatever targets are set, what I and Michelle intend to do is to make sure that we are working with credible folks to say, how do we maximize people who are being employed in the community? How do we maximize contractors and vendors in the community? I will be honest, if we have to choose between somebody who is not a minority or woman-owned vendor who does really great work and is going to make this whole thing terrific, and somebody who's raggedy, we will choose the folks who do the work. But what I'm also saying, though, is that we are not only confident that we can find people who can do the work, but where we have some specialized something or other, some engineering thing or some this or that, the other, where right now we don't have a high quality minority or woman-owned vendor who can do it, we will put pressure on the folks that we hire to say, who are you training and partnering with so that the next time they are able to do it. All right? And we've put together an inclusion council that is devoted just to dealing with this topic. Just a couple of numbers that people may be curious about in terms of the number of permanent jobs that we expect just in and around, actually working at the center. We're looking at 200 to 300 jobs. But the studies that have been done indicate that for the South Side, this will end up generating a couple of thousand jobs. In the construction phase, 14 to 1,500 in the construction phase and another 2,000 in the overall economic development of the area. Now, for the city as a whole, you're actually looking at more like 5,000 and 300 or 400. But just for the South Side, 80%, for example, of the construction benefits and hires will be here in this area. And let's see if I've checked off everything I wanted to say. Last thing I'm going to say, and then we'll open it up for questions, is that in terms of programming, part of our design currently envisions us creating a studio where I can invite, Spike Lee or Steven Spielberg to come and do workshops on how to make films around the stories that young activists are working on. We intend to have a music recording studio where I can invite Chance or Bruce Springsteen, depending on your taste, to come here and talk about how you can record music that has social commentary and meaning. One of the things that we're also looking at is how we can redesign, working with the Y, working with Hyde Park Academy, how we can take not just a track, but also potentially create a new field house. Because right now, frankly, we don't have one on the park. And you'll see that little box right near Hyde Park Academy. That would be the intention of that. What we're also looking at doing is partnering with the Chicago Public Libraries to see whether it makes sense for us to have a branch located right in the campus. And libraries are different today than they used to be. Kids may not be going there to get books. It's computers. And we're doing digital training there. And we ask Microsoft or Google or somebody to come in and teach our kids code. So the reason I'm raising these things is that once we've put together the facilities, working with the community, we can make our own decisions about, at any given moment, what are the kinds of things that are going to be most valuable, most relevant right now to making sure that our children have the opportunities that every other child should have. And that is going to be, most important. So I think I've covered enough. Otherwise, you'll never get any questions in. So with that, Mike, what do you got to say?
First of all, that's awesome, right?
It's awesome.
Case have come to the conclusion. All right, guys, so we actually lost this feed of former President Obama in Chicago.
On the Alton Sterling case.
Just getting the info updates here. The Department of Justice is holding a briefing on the Alton Sterling case. If you remember, he was a 37-year-old man who was shot by police last year in 2016 outside, sort of near a convenience store outside of a CD shop that he worked in. Sounds like they're giving a brief update. Possibly we'll hear from family, or there are family in the audience, but I'm going to try to find you former President Obama on another feed, but we'll stay listening to this for just a second.
Will be a state investigation to follow. But we simply felt that making a public statement was the right thing to do in a case that meant so much to so many. However, we must still be careful not to impede or jeopardize the integrity of the state investigation and decision process. To do that, this briefing will be limited to this statement. We hope that the information provided in my statement, along with a detailed press release to follow, will answer any questions you may have. Our investigation focused on one question. Did either Officer Salamone or Officer Lake violate federal criminal civil rights laws or any other federal criminal law in connection with their encounter with Mr. Sterling? As explained in more detail in our press release, federal law makes it a crime for a police officer acting willfully to deprive an individual of their constitutional rights. To prove that a shooting, such as here, violated Mr. Sterling's rights under federal law, the government, us, we must establish beyond a reasonable doubt that the officer's use of force was objectively unreasonable based on the circumstances at the time and based on their perceptions at the time. The government would also have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the officers acted willfully. That is, that they acted with a specific intent to do something that the law forbids. Under this standard, it is not enough to show that an officer acted recklessly or with negligence or by mistake, exercised bad judgment, used poor tactics, or even that the officer escalated the situation where he could have de-escalated it. Those things are not violations of the federal criminal civil rights laws. Federal prosecutors are only allowed to bring federal criminal charges if we believe we could establish the defendant's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt at trial. That is the Department of Justice policy, and that is the ethical rules that bind us. These rules apply to every single federal criminal case and every federal prosecutor in the country. So with this rule and with the law in mind, we began our investigation shortly after the shooting. My office, along with the Civil Rights Division and the FBI, assigned very experienced senior career prosecutors and agents who worked on this matter nearly full-time through many nights, weekends, and holidays. We also enlisted support from literally dozens of team members, including personnel from the FBI lab in Quantico. Our aim was to determine the facts as best we could through an exceedingly thorough and comprehensive investigation. We promised that when the investigation began, and we thought it was the right thing to do by Mr. Sterling's family, the officers involved, the police department, and this community. One agent actually remarked that we would not only leave no stone unturned, but after we turned over each stone, we would just keep digging and find whatever was underneath. And that's exactly what we did. The team probed and questioned dozens of witnesses, from government employees to civilians. We obtained, reviewed, and enhanced numerous videos that captured all or part of the incident and the periods before and after, including cell phone videos, store surveillance video, police vehicle video, and videos from body cams. We examined how evidence was collected and analyzed. We hired national use of force experts, and we obtained and reviewed voluminous documents and records, including BRPD records, policies, training manuals, personnel records, and other documents. We took nothing for granted. We followed any trail of evidence that we thought had any possibility of shedding light on the officer's state of mind and intent at the time of the shooting. In addition to the shooting itself, we gathered evidence concerning the officer's activities before and after the shooting to determine whether any of that activity may have violated federal criminal laws, including the federal civil rights laws, as well as the laws against false statements and obstruction of justice. Again, we assumed nothing. Some of the additional investigative steps that we took did add to the length of this investigation, but we believed it was most important to ensure that the investigation was complete and accurate. Also, while understanding of the interest, the tremendous interest in this investigation, we firmly believed that any premature public discussions and disclosures about the investigation would risk its accuracy and its reliability. That simply was unacceptable because our goal was to ensure the most accurate and complete results. So let's now turn to the facts. It is important to note that this entire exchange between Mr. Sterling and the officers happened very quickly, with events happening in rapid succession. The entire encounter, from the moment the officers first approached Mr. Sterling through the firing of the sixth and final shot, was about 90 seconds. Based on dispatch recordings, we know that at approximately 12:30 a.m. on July 5th, 2016, Officers Salamone and Lake were told to respond by dispatch to a report that an African-American man wearing a red shirt and selling CDs had, quote, pulled a pistol on somebody outside the SSS Food Mart and had a gun in his pocket. It is reasonable to expect officers with this information to focus on eliminating any threat from a gun immediately upon their arrival. The videos, which are disturbing, show that the officers arrived on the scene with an immediate goal of ensuring that Mr. Sterling's hands were in control and not able to access a weapon. At first, they directed Mr. Sterling to put his hands on the hood of the car. When he did not comply, the officers placed their hands on Mr. Sterling, who struggled with and resisted officers. Officer Salamone then pulled a gun and pointed it at Mr. Sterling's head, prompting Mr. Sterling, who appears confused at this point, to put his hands on the hood. Mr. Sterling's size, 6'3" and over 300 pounds, made it difficult for officers to control, much less handcuff Mr. Sterling at that point. After Mr. Sterling, still struggling, briefly attempted to move his hands from the hood, Officer Lake deployed his taser on Mr. Sterling, who fell to his knees, but then began to get back up. The officers ordered Mr. Sterling to get down, but Mr. Sterling did not comply, and Officer Lake attempted unsuccessfully to tase him again. At that point, as Mr. Sterling stood to face the officers with his hands free, Officer Salamone holstered his weapon and then tackled Mr. Sterling. They both went to the ground with Officer Salamone on top of Mr. Sterling, who was on his back with his right hand partially under the hood of the car. Officer Lake joined him on the ground, kneeling on Mr. Sterling's left arm, while Officer Salamone attempted to gain control over Mr. Sterling's right arm. Within a few seconds, we know from the audio and video that Officer Salamone yelled, quote, "Going for his pocket, he's got a gun, gun," or words to that effect. Officer Salamone did not shoot at this point. Instead, he was attempting to gain control of Mr. Sterling's hand, but we know from the video that he was not successful. Officer Lake drew his weapon and yelled at Mr. Sterling, again directing him not to move. Less than 1 second later, during a point at which the location of Mr. Sterling's right hand is not visible to the video and to the cameras, Officer Salamone again yelled that Mr. Sterling was, quote, "going for a gun." It is at that point that Officer Salamone then fired 3 shots into Mr. Sterling's chest. In order to convict Officer Salamone of a federal criminal civil rights violation for this shooting, we would have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Officer Salamone did not believe that Mr. Sterling was actually going for a gun when he made that statement, and that he simply decided to shoot him. Within a few seconds of the first 3 shots, as Officer Salamone and Mr. Sterling were both laying on the ground, Mr. Sterling began to sit up and roll to his left. With his back to the officers. At this point, the officers could not see Mr. Sterling and what he was doing with his hands and whether he was going for a gun. Officer Lake yelled at Mr. Sterling to get on the ground, and when Mr. Sterling continued to move, Officer Salamone fired 3 more shots into Mr. Sterling's back. Immediately after the shooting, video shows Officer Lake go directly to Mr. Sterling's right pocket and retrieve a .38 caliber revolver, which was loaded. In statements made immediately following the incident, both officers stated that they saw Mr. Sterling reaching for a gun and saw the gun itself coming out of the pocket. The struggle on the ground lasted a total of 27 seconds. As a result, life and death decisions were being made in split seconds. This is an unfortunate reality of police work at a time when encounters between the police and the community have been increasingly violent and unfortunately often deadly. In this case, we consulted with 2 independent use of force experts who the Civil Rights Division has previously engaged as government witnesses in other federal civil rights cases. Both experts are nationally recognized authorities in this field, and they are truly independent. Neither is from Baton Rouge area or has any ties to the Baton Rouge Police Department or the officers involved. Now, I want to be clear. Both experts criticized techniques and approach in this case. Having said that, the experts also concluded unanimously that the officers' actions were not unreasonable, and because of the quickly unfolding and dangerous circumstances, and therefore met constitutional standards. In the experts' opinion, the officers cycled up and down a use of force continuum in a manner reasonable when confronting an armed suspect before ultimately using lethal force, which they did not use until Officer Salamone shouted that Mr. Sterling was reaching for his gun. In light of all this, it was the unanimous decision of all of the prosecutors and agents in this case that we simply did not have sufficient evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that either officer violated the federal criminal civil rights laws. As I said before, to prove a federal criminal civil rights violation, we have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the officers acted unreasonably and willfully. That is, that they acted with a specific intent to do something that the law forbid. This is the highest standard in federal criminal law, willfulness. Being reckless, escalating a situation that may have been de-escalated, those things are not a basis under the law for a federal criminal civil rights prosecution. First, we were unable to establish beyond a reasonable doubt the precise location of Mr. Sterling's hand at the moment at which the officer states on the recording that Mr. Sterling was, quote, going for a gun. In other words, we cannot establish that Mr. Sterling was not reaching for a gun, or more accurately, that the officers did not believe he was reaching for a gun. And therefore, we can't establish that the lethal force that was used was unreasonable. Second, as I mentioned earlier, there is a distinct statutory requirement of willfulness. In our view, the evidence is insufficient to meet this element because we cannot prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the officers knew what they were doing was unreasonable or prohibited, and they simply chose to do it anyway. There are no winners here, and there are no victories for anybody. A man has died, a father, a nephew has died. My heart goes out to the family. For the family, for the community, for the police department, and for the cause of justice, please know that experienced, highly trained federal agents and prosecutors worked hard to investigate and examine the facts to determine if a federal criminal case could be brought here. We have all concluded that no such case can be brought under federal law. Going forward, we will continue to support and work with the Department of Justice's Community Relations Service, which has been on the ground since this past summer, working to increase dialogue and engagement among civic and community leaders. And my office, which has long been involved in numerous community outreach projects and initiatives across Baton Rouge, will continue to look for opportunities to engage with citizens, students, lawyers, and others interested in federal criminal civil rights laws or any other federal criminal laws through healthy, productive dialogue. The United States Department of Justice, of which we are all a part, everyone up here, remains committed to investigating allegations of excessive force involving police officers or any other law enforcement agents. And we will continue to devote significant resources required to ensure that all serious allegations of civil rights violations are thoroughly examined. The department aggressively prosecutes civil rights violations whenever there is sufficient evidence to do so, and in fact, there are investigations and prosecutions ongoing in this district as we speak between us and the Civil Rights Division and the FBI doing just that. Having said all of that, it is again based on the evidence of this particular case that we have all concluded, every single agent and prosecutor on this case, those standing up here and those not, that there simply is not sufficient evidence to proceed with the federal charge. The Louisiana Attorney General's Office, with the assistance of the Louisiana State Police, now intends to conduct its own inquiry into whether the conduct at issue violated any provision of the Louisiana state law. And it will have its...
All right, guys, rolling out of that, you are hearing, this is live from the Department of Justice, saying that this case, this Alton Sterling case, the shooting of a 37-year-old black male last summer, I want to say 2016, there is just not enough evidence to proceed federally. That's the news coming out of this media availability right now. I want to bring you back to Chicago, where former President Obama, it took me a second to find this feed again, but he's talking about the Obama Presidential Center that will be going up in Jackson Park in Chicago. I'm going to bring you over there now.
Including in this city, it was more like urban removal. A lot of times what happened in development was you had these big blocks of development where nobody could walk, there weren't any small stores, there weren't any foot traffic. Suddenly the streets are empty, and people don't want to go to places where there are no people. It's also more of a security issue when there are no people on the streets, right? Part of the reason now that the South Loop or the West Loop or the Loop looks so much different than when I first came here in 1985 is because suddenly you had these street-level attractions and interactions, and people started feeling like, oh, this is a lively place. And I'm seeing all kinds of stuff going on. And so we should not be afraid of wanting more people here. And we estimate that this library and campus will probably get 600 to 700,000 visitors. And that's a good thing, because they are going to then see how beautiful this community is. They are going to then be frequenting stores, and that means that the proprietors of local businesses can benefit. In doing all this, we got to make sure that the communities are stable and folks that are here are benefiting from it. And that's why this whole economic development process and the consultations with the groups that are already here is going to be so important.
You know, the other, Perry Irmer is here, the president of the DuSable Museum.
Hey, Perry.
And so we really have the opportunity to extend that museum campus even further west,
right,
into Washington Park. The Washington Park folks are in the house.
Yes, sir.
Stephanie from South Shore had a question. Where are you, Stephanie? There you are. Hey, Stephanie. So Stephanie saw the design out there. She loved it. And she thought,
is that true, Stephanie, or is he putting your words in there? It's nice, right? Did you see those barbecue?
We'll go back and take a look. We'll highlight them. Talk to us a little bit about the inspiration for this. What inspired you? What inspired Mrs. Obama? What inspired the design team to come up with such a compelling vision for the Presidential Center?
You know, I think this is a great thing to have Dina talk about, because we've been watching Todd and Billy and Dina and the whole team. I wanted to be an architect when I was a kid, and somehow it took a wrong turn and ended up in politics. But really, it starts with conversations, and Dina, maybe you can just walk through how this has evolved, but also the continuing evolution that'll be taking place.
And I think, again, I can speak safely for Todd Williams, Billy Chen, and Bob and Charlie, that the inspiration is your vision. It's what you want to do with this building. Right now, we're at the concept stage, so the buildings are taking shape, but they may or may not be in their final form. It's an evolving process, but it's all about making sure that the physical creation matches the vision and is constantly being checked for that. And every day that vision changes, not your vision changes, but there are some changes that occur because things are thought out. We have incredible sessions where there's a lot of back and forth, and you can only do that. You can't design in a vacuum. Sure, someone may have a particular style, but that may not work. You've got to work with the client and work with the vision and help unify the two.
Yeah. The main thing that Michelle and I contributed is just saying, what is it that we want to see, say, 10 years from now? And what we said is, we don't want to see some big building that's dead and kids are being dragged to it, for a field trip, and they're sitting there, and so, yeah, that's Obama, and then they go and have to write a report. What we wanted was something that was alive and that was a hub for activity for the community and for the city and for the country. And that's how this vision evolved, of a campus and it being open and the park being completely integrated with the buildings and the programming, and that this is something to be used and where kids are getting their hands dirty and they're learning how to do stuff and they're playing and it's fun. And it's exciting.
One of the things you always mention, both of you mention, is how the user experience is a priority. And that's developing the design.
No, that's true. Because I'll be honest with you, initially, even for the big, tall tower, everybody was all like, well, we got to have your big suite at the top. And I was like, well, if the views they're real good, I want to make sure people who are visiting can go see the views, not just me. I've seen good views. I have access to good views. I'd like kids to be able to see what it looks like to be on top of over the lake and maybe being able to see the tip of the city. So, it's important for us, from my perspective, to just make sure that that when we're gone, this thing is living. It's growing. It's constantly moving. And Michelle is the person who also reminded me, I'm the one who was taking those little girls and I in the stroller, and so, how's the parking? What are the bathrooms like? Is it easy to find something to eat? Just very practical things that, parents have to deal with, right? We want to make it user-friendly.
So we have time for one more question. Before I get to that, Dina, I was reminded about a story that you told at a community reception recently. Mrs. Obama spoke recently to the American Institute of Architects. Mm-hmm. It was fabulous.
Yeah, there's a few.
All right, there you go.
Well, she had talked about there, she spoke about diversity in the profession. And one of the things that you pointed out was you really have to give children an opportunity to see architects. And so if you're going to give them the chance to be one. So one, we're so glad you're here, not only for your work, but for the example that you set. But tell us about your time at Kenwood Academy.
There you go.
Yeah.
When you decided you were going to be an architect.
Oh God, this is not that time, but I'll just touch on it a little bit. I went to Kenwood Academy, go Broncos. And we had, this is really going to date me, but it's okay, I don't care. We had to choose between industrial education or home economics. And I wanted nothing to do with any kind of baking, cooking, and I still don't. Ask my mom. So I chose industrial education, and I didn't care at that moment if I had to do welding or carpentry or whatever, break a nail, I didn't care. I wasn't going to do home economics. That year, they were teaching architectural drafting, and that was my introduction into the profession. Now, I'm in high school. That shouldn't have been the first time, not that I've heard of an architect, but really knew what architecture was about. And that's how I got introduced to it, and then when I got to college, the field was opened up to me. But that was my inspiration. Little did I know that there were so few minority architects in the profession. There are only, I think there are less than 400 women out of 111,000 architects. There are only about 400 black women in the profession. So my charge, when I'm not doing architecture or not playing tennis, is trying to go and speak to schools to encourage more minority inclusion in the profession.
Sure.
And little did you know that someday you'd be designing the Presidential Center for the first African-American president.
But what this also, just listening to that story, that's part of what I want this center to be one where not only is Dina going to high schools, but the high schools are coming to Dina at the center and just talking as a practical matter about how do you get to be an architect. And this being a clearinghouse where we can start placing young people in various professions. And how do we make sure that we're exposing them early to the possibilities of life. And to have something that is a beacon for them about what's possible ultimately is more than just buildings or jobs or contracts. It's about hope. It's about belief. It's about the story that our kids tell themselves if they see a world-class institution in their community, populated by people who come from their community, then they have a sense of importance. And that ultimately is what I want to give back, because that's what Chicago gave to me.
Mr. President, thank you so much. Southside, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Southside.
We're just getting started.
So there it is, former President Obama in one of his very few public engagement speaking events after his presidency. He's had about 2 or 3. This might just be one of those, the second one or the third one. And he's very casual. You can see never any tie, just chilling on the stage, talking very real talk about how he wants his presidential center in Chicago to be a place that if you heard him say, not just that school children go to write a report on, but that is interesting and interactive and like he said at the very end here, a beacon for people to look at, and to be involved and to experience. So just another event here from President Obama. I thought maybe Michelle was going to join him here, but apparently she did not. And I apologize that we had to switch that feed midway, but I wanted to make sure I caught the end of that live event. So here he goes, just greeting people. This is at the South Shores Cultural Center, and his presidential library of sorts or center is planned for Jackson Park in Chicago. So that is what we have for you today. I'm going to bring you back to a shot of the White House here in Washington. Check it out. And that is not it. There we go. We are going to round out today's show. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bring you back to me here in Washington, D.C. I'm Molly Nevola at DC5 Live, bringing you live events. Be sure to follow us on our social media. You can check our Facebook page for an updated version of the story about what happened today at North Lake College in Irving, Texas, that murder-suicide situation that police have since gotten under control. Do check our web story for updates on that. And also follow us on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter. Fox5DC is our handle. And don't forget to subscribe. If you like our YouTube channel, subscribe to our channel so that you can get updated pushes for whenever we go live for live shows and live events here in Washington. All right, that is going to do it, guys. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. We'll catch you tomorrow live, just like we did today, 11:30 into the afternoon for live events. Thanks for joining us, guys.